Okay. Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Twinsburg Board of Education. Today is Wednesday, November 18th. The time is 7:07. I would like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Mrs. DeFabio?
Here.
Mr. Felber?
Here.
And Mrs. Davis?
Here.
And Mrs. Gordon?
Here.
Okay, we're all here. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I don't believe we have any changes or addendums to the agenda.
No, we don't.
Okay, so I will move on to my president's report. Good evening and welcome, parents, community, and administration of Twinsburg City Schools. I'm Mark Curtis, and I'm honored to be your board president. I would also like to extend a virtual welcome to the families of R.B. Chamberlain Middle School, Wilcox Primary School, Twinsburg High School, and George G. Dodge Intermediate School. This evening, the superintendent will be providing the board and community with a report detailing the results of a survey that was most recently administered to our families. In light of the spike in COVID-19 cases that we've experienced as a district, we want to ensure that we have feedback from our families and staff to assist in guiding our decisions moving forward. Twinsburg families, we are at a critical juncture as we continue to navigate these uncharted waters. Although much planning and preparation has gone into allowing our families an opportunity and a choice to attend in-person classes and participate in extracurricular activities, our current trajectory for the rate of positive cases is troubling. Despite all that has gone into providing these opportunities, we cannot control what occurs outside of our classrooms and buildings. Complete transparency is what we strive to accomplish in keeping you all informed. However, it's imperative that our school community strictly adhere to the safety protocols that have been established after school hours and during the weekends. As the governor has recently issued revised orders and guidance, we must avoid large gatherings, wear face masks, socially distance when out, and practice good hygiene at all times. And to quote our governor, we must all do our part to change the current trend that we're on. As we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to enjoy our families and recognize just how fortunate we truly are in what we've been able to accomplish since early spring. I'm personally thankful to be a part of such a wonderful school district and community where we've been through so much adversity, yet strive in seeing the best in one another. As we struggle through these difficult times, please remember to be kind, encouraging, and supportive of those who are less fortunate. It doesn't take much, but it goes a long way. This concludes my president's report, and I will now turn the meeting over to our superintendent, Mrs. Powers.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Curtis, Board of Education, and members of our community. We are very pleased to be with you this evening. We have a very busy agenda and a lot of important information to share with you tonight. Of course, our highlight really is talking about our students. And this evening, we have our leadership from Wilcox Primary School, George G. Dodge Intermediate School, and Twinsburg High School, who will present and recognize our Students of the Month and our building highlights. So before we get to that, there's just a couple of other things I'd like to mention. This evening, there will be 3 administrative reports. The first will be provided by our treasurer, Mr. Aho, who will present our district's 5-year forecast. Also, Board of Education, this evening, under the new business section of the agenda, you will find a recommendation for the 2021-2022 academic calendar. Per statute, a traditional school district Board of Education must hold a public hearing at least 30 days prior to adopting the school calendar. Tonight's agenda provides this opportunity and ample time for members of our community to provide feedback before the board will take action regarding the calendar at its meeting on January 6th. The calendar that you will review this evening was developed in collaboration between members of our administrative team and members of the Twinsburg Education Association. Thirdly, as part of the administrative reports, I will provide a summary of the survey data that our parents and staff members provided regarding the remainder of this calendar year, or I should say the second quarter of the 2021 school year. Gathering this feedback was important as we continue to address the needs of our families. So without further ado, we'd like to begin with the celebration of our students. So we'd like to ask Ms. Lynn Villa, the principal at Wilcox Primary School, to please come forward and let's celebrate our Tigers. Good evening, Ms. Villa.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be here and see all of you. I'm not sure if you realize, but today is the 50th day of school. And one of our building highlights is that we took advantage of the 50th day of school to get in the mood and dress students and staff dressed up in the 1950s. So we had a lot of big poodle skirts and a lot of fun there with our students and staff. In those 50 days of school, our children have been doing an amazing job, whether they're learning remotely or on campus. I'm so impressed with how well our students are wearing their masks, washing their hands, and doing their very best. If you see them, they're walking like this, keeping their 6-foot distance from each other. They're navigating through the technology like champs. When I pop into the Google Meets for our students who are learning remotely, they are going in and out of classes. They're doing independent learning. They're working with each other, finding ways to collaborate even though they may not be physically next to each other. So I'm super proud of them. Our Vets Day celebration was a little different than it has been in the past, but also a wonderful opportunity for us to honor our veterans and our active military, and especially the local VFW, who are wonderful friends and partners to our school. So with all of that, our children have been doing their very best to be good citizens. And as you know, we like to honor our Wilcox Rocks kids. So what you're going to see here in a couple of minutes is a video that we put together so that we could honor our children. Some of them you'll see are holding their certificates because they are learning remotely at this time. And our teachers, you will hear their voices because they took the time to talk about each of their children, and we put it together in a wonderful video. I have to give a big shout out to our assistant principals, Mr. Asti and Ms. Walker, and our tech assistant, Mr. Lipness, for all of his expertise for what you're about to see. So.
Caleb rocks because he is an enthusiastic learner. He contributes to lessons and project discussions. He is a great listener and always follows the rules. Caleb loves to get his name on the project charts for giving information about what we are learning. You rock, Caleb.
Colton is a wonderful student. He enjoys school, and it shows in his everyday participation and his interactions with his peers. Colton is a considerate friend to all. He is responsible and a great classroom helper. It is a joy to have Colton in class. Great job, Colton.
I am so honored to nominate Evelyn for the Wilcox Rocks Award. Each day, Evelyn comes to school with a smile and is ready to learn. Evelyn's reading and sight words are really starting to take off, and I am so proud of her work. Evelyn tries her best in all that she does and never gives up. She is a role model for the entire class with her wonderful behavior. She listens to directions the first time given, she follows along, participates in class, and keeps a neat and organized desk. I can't wait to see all the amazing things Evelyn will accomplish this school year. Wilcox rocks because of you, Evelyn.
Colton is a respectful and compassionate kiddo whose kindness never goes unnoticed. He is always eager to learn and to help others in need. His enthusiasm for learning is joyful, and he always tackles challenges and tries his hardest no matter the circumstance. Colton truly embodies kindness and is a friend to all. Wilcox totally rocks because of Colton.
Emma shows responsibility in the classroom as she is prepared for lessons and strives to do her best. She loves to share during morning meeting prompts and is very theatrical in her stories. Emma is kind and considerate and brings the best out of others. It is a pleasure to have such a happy, fun, loving girl in the room. Wilcox rocks because of Emma.
Louis has been nominated for Mrs. Kane's class for the Wilcox Rocks Award because he demonstrates great citizenship. Louis is a kind and thoughtful boy who is respectful to his peers and adults. Louis always uses good manners and says thank you when he is served his breakfast or lunch. Louis is a great model to his classmates and a pleasure to have in class.
Madison is a kind, caring, respectful, hardworking little girl. She has been trying her best this year and always asks for help when she needs it. Madison never gives up and works hard every day. Wilcox rocks because of Madison.
We're very proud of our Wilcox Rocks students, and I hope that they are able to watch this either live tonight or when it's on the recorded video so that they can see how proud we are of all of them. Thank you so much.
Ms. Villa, that was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I really can't take credit. It really was Ms. Walker, Mr. Asti, and Ms. Lipness, and of course the teachers.
What a fun way to present the children.
Yeah, I thought they did a really fabulous job, so I was really proud to be able to share that with all of you tonight. And so I think the next time we're back is February. We're going to have something else up our sleeve for that day.
Love the graphic. Love the little cub.
Yeah, Mr. Lipness just joined our staff this year, and he really is bringing his talents to our school, so we're very excited to have him join us.
And he's a graduate of Twinsburg High School.
He is, yes, he
There you go.
is.
There you go.
That's great.
Thank you. Now we'd like to ask our leadership from George G. Dodge Intermediate School at Twinsburg High School campus to come forward with Mr. Holland, Mrs. Huggins, and Ms. Gates. Good evening, everyone.
So thank you, Mr. Powers. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mr. Holland. I'm the principal at Dodge Intermediate School at the high school, which is kind of our hashtag. Excited to be up there. But I did want to make sure that we took a moment to introduce our administrative team because it looks a little different this year, and they're working really hard. So first, we're going to bring Mrs. Huggins up as our returning assistant principal.
This is Iwanda Huggins. This is my 6th year here in Twinsburg and going fast and strong and loving all the changes and really embracing our year with all of its specialness as well.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Gates. This is my first year here, and I want to thank the board for having me here, and Mrs. Kathy Powers for having me here as well. I am honored and to be such a part of such a great team, so thank you.
Part of what we wanted to do is we consistently have a great team at Dodge at the 456, and it's because of great leadership, and not only Mrs. Powers, but the board being willing to put together such a strong team. What I'm most proud of our team is the fact that we continue to stay focused on kids, on the well-being of our students. And to echo Mrs. Villa, what I wanted to share with you all is our students are doing such a fantastic job. At the high school, part of what we have charged our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders to do is to still continue their leadership. And it's so important when the younger students are there with us to make sure that they are being role models for the 2nd and 3rd graders, standing up and helping kids make good decisions, and they have been truly fantastic. A little difficult talking through a mask, so bear with me. But I think that's a tribute to our community, it's a tribute to our families. Our families have been so supportive in the new routines and practices at the high school, and to making sure that these are great opportunities for our young people. So we really, really appreciate that. With that success, though, continues to come really great hard work from our students. So as we get ready to look at a short video for our Students of the Month, one of the things differently that you'll see is a little tag like this one. These are our Earn Your Stripes tags. In front of each board member and the central office staff, there's an envelope. I'd ask you to open your envelope at this time. So each of our students earns something like this to represent the hard work that they have done. And so what we wanted to do at Dodge is also to present an Earn Your Stripe Award to our board members and our superintendent. You guys continue to work so hard to make sure that we have a great school year, and we truly have had a great school year. Our students are working hard, our teachers are working hard, and it really is a testament to all the hard work that you all are doing behind the scenes. And I want to make sure that we publicly say thank you, because there are some tough decisions that sometimes need to be made, but we know that it's always made in the best interest of our kids and our families, and so again, thank you. So at this time, we would like to share our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students of the month.
Today, I am honored to recognize the 4th grade students of the month for 4th Grade Intermediate School for our November. Congratulations goes to Matab Panawa, he is earning his certificate and his Stripe Award. Our next student of the month for 4th grade is Seth Hamid. Sandy Tucker. Dominic Brawl. And Farrah Fuller. Congratulations to our 4th graders at Dodge.
I'm so excited to announce our 5th grade Tiger Students of the Month for November, Alexis Benyat. And here is your Tiger's card. Turn and smile. And Riley Lipson. Your Tiger Stripes card.
And our 6th grade Tiger of the Month goes to a very special 6th grader, and she is being recognized for trustworthiness, and her name is Olivia McQueen. Congratulations, Olivia. Olivia has won her certificate as well as her Tiger Stripe card. We want to thank all of our Tigers for earning their Tiger of the Month this month, and we look forward to seeing all of our Tigers again next month. So as we continue to get our student council representatives up and going, because you'll see most of this video coming from our student council representatives at this time. But in the meantime, if you would be honored to wear your Tiger Stripe Award, wear it proudly, because we know that it represents us. And again, we thank you very much for your service to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Holland. Mr. Holland, do you want to explain why you're on a tricycle?
So me and my little friend here, there's 2 stories. One is that I was skydiving, and so I was trying to skydive. That's the story I tell most people. But truthfully, I did not skydive. I injured my foot. So I've been on this scooter for about the last month. And Dr. Hebert, your building is super large. So the easiest way to get around is on this nice little scooter. It's been fun, and it's what the most exciting part of all of it, though, is that the kids have been monitoring and making sure that I'm getting better. So they check in on me and they say to me, how's it feeling today? I hope you're feeling better. And again, it's that sympathy and the empathy that our kids are learning. So I may stay on a little longer than I need to, but that's why I'm on it. Thank you.
We hope you mend soon. Thank you, Ms. Gates and Mrs. Huggins, also for being here this evening. We appreciate all that you do over at the high school campus with our Dodge students. And welcome aboard again, Mrs. Gates. And finally here, but not for least, I should say, is our high school principal, Dr. Laura Hebert, who's here to celebrate our Tigers from Twinsburg High School. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight and having the opportunity to celebrate our students. Because it's so weird this year with a split school, a split alpha, a split everything is different. One thing that's nice to always do is to celebrate the kids and the good things that they're doing. And at the high school, at RBC, and do not get comfortable. One of the things our kids have said that they miss more than anything, and it's weird, is the building. One kid went up to get his work permit and started to cry in the Welcome Center and said, "I can't go in. I miss my building." And I was like, really? But kids glom on to different things. But as time has gone on, I think our kids have started to feel comfortable where they are. They feel comfortable with their teachers. They feel comfortable with the situation. And they really are, to echo the other principals, doing great things. They wear their masks. They stay 6 feet. They wait until the spray dries. It's become what they do, and they don't seem to, they're not really having a problem with it. We couldn't get them to talk for the first month. It was like a muzzle, and now that's over. They're talking just fine. So I was excited the first time I walked down the hall. I was getting ready to say, "Hey, why are you so loud?" And I thought, just be as loud as you want. So I'm excited for that. Tonight we did put together a video. I will say it has made me realize what clothes I should and should not wear. But it's really about the kids, and I'm really proud of their accomplishments. Good evening, and I'm thankful and grateful for the opportunity to present my students to you, the Board of Education. As you know, we do the AAA here at Twinsburg High School, athletics, activities, and all-around great students. And we have several students tonight that I'd like to celebrate, recognize, and recommend. Each of them will be getting a certificate. Each of them will be told why they're getting that certificate, and each of them should be super excited to get it. Thanks. Okay, over 1.5 million students took the 2019 PSAT last October and entered the National Merit Scholarship Program, a nationwide competition for recognition and awards conducted by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. In April, 50,000 of the highest scores earned on the PSAT were identified, and schools across the nation were notified. Some 16,000 of those high school performers were recently designated semifinalists. These students have an opportunity to continue in the merit scholarship competition and advance to the finalist standing by meeting a number of additional requirements. We are excited that Katie Vasilakis is one of our National Merit Scholarship semifinalists. Congratulations, Katie.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. As I've been saying, we have great academic students, and Amy, right here, Amy Dokabura, is being awarded the National Merit Scholar semifinalist. So she is a National Merit semifinalist. Amy, congratulations. Thank you. A little elbow bump. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you. And now, Joshua Cola is our last and final National Merit Scholarship semifinalist. We're so proud. Little. Yeah, there you go. Congratulations, Joshua.
Thank you.
Thank you. The other 34,000 high performers on the PSAT are named Commended Scholars based on National Merit Selection Index scores. These Commended Scholars have demonstrated outstanding potential for academic success. This one right here is Alexander Rose, and we are excited to name him a Commended Scholar. Congratulations, Alexander.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Today we have Michael Labib with us. He is one of our Commended Scholars, one of the 34,000 high performers that are named up to the Commended Scholar list. We have a special certificate of recognition for Michael. Michael, here you go, as well as a pin from the school board recognizing his achievement and his overall academic excellence. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you. Another Commended Scholar that we would like to recognize, and a member of the Academy here at Twinsburg High School, is Nikhil Prasad. Nikhil, congratulations on being a Commended Scholar.
Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. In addition to our academic awards, we also provide awards for our students who are named All-Around Student of the Month, nominated by our teachers. And in this case, Trinity has been nominated by a couple teachers, and I have something I want to read about her. She doesn't even know that I'm going to read it. Trinity is an outstanding Tiger Strong student, as she is a team player, is very responsible and organized, along with also being noble and goal-oriented. She is a phenomenal leader in class who leads by example, always diligently working, participating, and working well with her classmates. Mrs. Drain has been extremely impressed with Trinity's dedication and progress with our authentic learning activities. She's been completing exemplary work, not just with listening activities, but also with her writing assignments and projects. And she's always looking forward to seeing her work. She is a wonderful student to have in class. So there you go, Trinity. For Mrs. Drain, you are one of our all-around Student of the Month, Tiger Strong. Little fist bump. There you go. Congratulations. All right. Today we also have Will Linson, 9th grader, who is at Dodge, although it's definitely part of THS. Will is a student in Miss Kmet's honors biology class and a member of the cross-country team. He's very goal-oriented in both his schoolwork and his running. Miss Kmet says that she is repeatedly impressed by the initiative he takes to ensure his own success. He asks questions, seeks feedback, and pays close attention to detail in both his academic and athletic endeavors. Will epitomizes the goal-oriented component of Tiger Strong, and I am proud to have him in my classroom and on the team. That's per Ms. Kmet, all right? So we are going to present you with this Student of the Month, all-around Student of the Month for both academics and athletics, as well as this pin from the school board. Congratulations on your accomplishments, and welcome to the Tiger family. Whoa, elbow, all right. All right, with me I have Blaze Tanner, a member of our boys varsity golf team. He is being recognized tonight at the Board of Education meeting for his district qualifier status, as well as being second team all-conference. According to his coach, Blaze has been a wonderful leader and overall great person. He served as the team captain and the go-to guy for the entire boys golf team. Blaze put in the work over the past few years, and his reward was making it to the district tournament 3 years straight, despite being in one of the most competitive districts in the state. He loves going to the driving range and hitting balls, consistently practicing to be better. I go to the driving range. I never made it to the districts. I'm terrible. All right, and in an effort to improve the overall team, he has gotten several of his teammates to do the same. Blaze will be a great addition to his college team. We are really proud of him here, and he's going to give me a little elbow bump. Congratulations, Blaze.
Thank you.
Good luck next year.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so today we have Lindsay Stevens from the girls golf team. She is a sophomore and returning letter winner on the girls varsity team. Her hard work and positive attitude are extraordinary for an athlete of her age and have earned her team captain honors. Lindsay finished her season being selected to the Suburban League second team all-conference. She took 4th place out of 327 other golfers in the individual competition at the OHSAA sectional golf tournament and qualified for the OHSAA district golf tournament. So Lindsay is our athlete Board of Education Student of the Month, so I'd like to present her with this certificate and this pin from the Board of Education as well. And even though I can't shake your hand, we can kind of elbow bump, right? All right, congratulations. They just wanted to make sure that they would be on the video because I made them take it about 5 different times, and that's still the best you got. So we're going to work on it for next time, but they did a great job in spite of their principal, so we're really proud of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hebert. We appreciate you being here tonight. There are so many reasons to celebrate, and these are just a few of the wonderful Tigers that go to our school campuses and attend school virtually too. So thank you so much, administrators, for being here. It's been a long day. I always appreciate you taking some time out of your family life to come to our board meetings to celebrate our students virtually this year, but nonetheless special for our students and their families. So thank you very much. And that concludes my report for this evening, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you, Mrs. Powers, and thank you all for being here and also for your very creative presentations. We really appreciate it. Next, under communications will be committee reports. Do we have anyone reporting out on any committees? Okay. Well, then I will hand it back over to the administrative report, Mr. Aho.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Yeah, sure. 5-year forecast. What I've done here is just kind of put the forecast up there as it'll show up on the ODE website. And I know it's small, but I just wanted to put it up there just to kind of go through the slides real quick. So just go ahead, Jen, just kind of, that's the second page. There's some comments there, some assumptions on how they're developed. Next page starts, just kind of going over how it's developed and some of the history. On this page in the middle, in the blue, basically it goes on to say the purpose of the ODE's forecast, and this is why the ODE developed it, was to encourage the local Board of Education and community in long-range planning and discussion of financial issues facing the school district. 2 is to serve as the basis for determining the school district's ability to sign a for-call certificate. And 3 is to provide a method for the Department of Education and Auditor of State to identify school districts with potential financial problems. So that's the reason that was developed, and that's kind of the history there. On the next slide, in the middle of the blue part there, we kind of touch on what's happened this year with COVID. Due to the COVID pandemic, the governor cut the state's budget by $775 million and slashed $355,000 from education. That was for last fiscal year. Also the same for this fiscal year, where the schools have lost $355 million. Twinsburg was reduced $874,000. And some of that was made up to some of the COVID funding and whatnot. But that's just the reality of it. The state cut the funding. If not for some of the COVID funding, we'd be feeling that impact a lot more. There's just some more into the narrative. It goes through on what makes up the expenditures, what makes up the revenues. And then the last page on that is basically kind of sums it up. Some of the history, there's an article there that was from like 2010, and it basically says the same thing that's valid now. The state needs to step up and fund schools properly. The next slide. One thing that I think everybody is aware of is the quality profile. And that really kind of, highlights a lot of the great things that are going on in this district. As things go crazy, we need to, kind of look at what some of the good things are and what we're grateful for. We have a great school district here. Maybe something didn't go right today and you're having a bad day, but, this is one area where the school district does a great job. If it wasn't here, well, then what? I think some people, with the shutdown and all that, they've kind of felt the pinch of not having school and what that looks like. The possibilities of some of the events being canceled and all that stuff really shows people the value of a school district and the educational and the care that they give to students. This is one thing that we've been talking about forever, since 2005, 15 years. People are probably tired of hearing about it, but it's still important. That's the CAT tax, PPP CAT tax idea. When it was originally when originally the state did away with, the legislature did away with it, it was $9.8 million. In 2010, it was $7.8 million. So if you kind of look at that over the 10 years since 2010, it's a total of about $42 million that we haven't received because they've been phasing out that funding source for us. And it's got to be gone in 2023, 24. It'll be all gone. And next one. This is expenditures, a little bit of history there. There's 5 years of history. I'm going to show some year-over-year increases as moving forward. Shows, the general total expenditures year over year. Some years are a little different than other years. Not every year is exactly the same. Superintendent does a great job of watching the expenditures, trying to justify every expense as best we can. And we watch what we're spending and what we're spending it on and making sure that it's going for a good purpose. Here's one of the things, just kind of trending it forward as we develop the 5-year forecast, taking that trend of 4.1%, trending forward the expenditure lines. We had some additional costs because of COVID. We needed additional staffing. We needed some purchase service assistance, the increase in nursing services especially. So there's some additional costs, and then we developed the 5-year forecast numbers for the current year. There's the 5-year forecast from May. On there, you'll notice it goes through 2024, so this was last spring. In there, you can see in 2024 that the expenditures exceed revenues by $10 million, and there's about $3 million fund balance left. This is the current 5-year forecast. A little hard to read, but the gist of this is you can see there's a little bit of fund balance in 2024, but in 2025, there's a real problem with a negative fund balance. So some hard decisions are going to need to be made between now and then to correct that deficit in fund balance. At that point, probably like a year or two ahead of that, the state would be in contact with the district, discussing how that's going to be fixed or corrected, and if that doesn't take place, then that's when the state starts developing their plan for a state takeover or something, put you in physical emergency or physical watch or physical caution, one of those type of scenarios. One of the things we also have to be aware of here is the $5 million renewal levy. And what they do, what their guidance is on that, is those dollars need to be pulled out of the top real estate line because it needs to be shown as a renewal. And they put it all the way down on the bottom, so that yellow highlighted line is that $5 million renewal levy. Since it's on a calendar year and we're on a fiscal year, which is different, it's half. You lose half the first year, and then you get whatever. You get half a collection the first year of a levy, and then the second year it's back to normal. So just follows calendar years. So that's down there. So a lot of people, over time have been doing this for a long time, and when levies get moved down there and people can't find in the top line that it is reduced, they start asking questions. Well, I've said 100 times, that's where it goes. It goes down to the bottom. So that's where the revenues on top will be decreased by the like amount, which gets moved to the bottom. This is really the same slide, just a little bit bigger. I tried to chop out some of the other stuff that was in there. Kind of shows it moving down to the bottom. There again, you can see the deficit, the red number in 2025. We'll have to be aware of that. This is the expenditures from fiscal year 20. As you can see, schools are basically a service organization. 85% of our expenditures are for teachers and staff. And then 15% funds everything else, utilities, insurance, busing, athletics, vocal music, band, orchestra, classroom supplies, curriculum, technology, maintenance, buildings and grounds, upkeep. Everything else comes out of that 15%. So really, there's not a lot of room in these budgets. There's not a lot of fluff, and it's service that we're providing. If you didn't have the kids, you wouldn't need the service, but we have the kids, so you get an appropriate level of service to take care of our students and to teach them. It's something we just can't, like General Motors several years ago decided that they were on hard times, that they just quit making Pontiacs and Oldsmobiles. Well, we just can't, quit doing something that we're doing now. We're just not going to teach that grade level. No, we got to keep doing what we're doing, but we got to be very conscious of our expenditures as we're doing it. This is something that I send the board every month. This is in their board packet, the board reconciliation and financial report. This kind of walks through the expenditures to give you a little bit of an idea of what makes up these numbers. As we go through it, these are all done by function. So the first function is basically instruction. So right there, just to highlight those, is 85% of the 100s and 200s, which are instruction salaries are 100s, 200s are the benefits and retirement. So 85% of our expenditures go to salaries and benefits. And there's the instruction code, which is the 1100, and then the one below it is special instruction. So when you take instruction and special instruction together, that 62% of the spending is directly related to the classroom and the instruction of our students. The rest of the line items, we have math and reading intervention for the next line. 2100 is support services, which is guidance, lunchroom assistance, the nursing PSI services, and the Beachbrook services. Those come out of that function code. Next line item is the curriculum and library function code. We need those, definitely need those to operate. The 2300 function code, that's the board offices. That's legal fees that we pay, and also the insurance comes out of that. The next one is the administrative and principals, their function code. Treasurer's office is the 2500. Large chunk of what comes out of the treasurer's office is down on that 800 line, and those are the fees that are collected, that are retained by the county when they collect the real estate taxes. That's a large portion of that. Is the business manager's office is the next one. And then 2700, that's a good one there. It's pretty sizable. But that one is the utilities, the building care, upkeep. So that's everything that keeps our buildings running. It's electric, gas, and that stuff is a large portion of those dollars. And then just the maintenance of the buildings, light bulbs and all the other things that go into, fixing motors and putting belts and filters in, and all that stuff usually comes out of a 2700 function code. That's about 8% right there, just on that one. Next is transportation. The transportation is about 6% of the costs. Those are bus drivers. Can't do without bus drivers. And that's the cost of running the buses. The fuel, the tires, belts and hoses, and all those things that you have to keep replacing on the buses because they just wear out. And a lot of miles on those buses every day riding around town. They do a great job, and now with the COVID, they're probably running more miles and hauling less kids in the meantime. So it's going to be probably a little bit of a demand increase on them to get to get the kids into the buildings. Technology is the next function code, and everybody has technology. We're one-to-one now, pretty much. Everything runs on computers. The other day when the electricity went out, we didn't have internet at the house, and everybody's looking at each other like, now what do we do? So, if at the schools, if the technology goes out and the internet goes down or something like that, people are kind of stuck. You can't get out the old piece of paper like you used to. Counting used to have big green bar, with 50 columns on it and filled in the little numbers on those sheets. All that's done now on, Excel spreadsheets. So after technology, there's the supplementals. There's the athletic supplementals and the academic supplementals. Those are two different function codes. Next down is debt. And then the final, there's just some like miscellaneous ones at the end. Basically transferring money back and forth between, usually it's at the end of the year we need to transfer money into the federal programs so they don't end the year with a deficit balance, and then the money gets transferred back, or really it's called advance. You advance them and then it kind of goes back into there. So that's just kind of a walkthrough of all those different cost functions to get an idea of what's there or what's driving those costs, and then what ultimately drives the costs in the 5-year forecast. This is our financial strategic planning flowchart. We've been using this for quite a while. It's a good roadmap. Basically keeps us so we don't, so we keep an eye on different aspects of what's in the financial mix for the district, 10,000, overview, 10,000-foot overview of what's going on. The next slide has our levy cycle on it. This is the one where we have the $5 million renewal levy. It was first up in November of this year. It was possible to put it on, but we can also put it on next year. We have several opportunities next year. So you put it on the May election. So what that means is then we're going to bring a resolution to put it on in May. The first resolution will probably we'll bring forth the December 16th meeting, and that would be the resolution to submit. What happens then is you take that one, it goes to the county. They do the real estate figuring on those numbers, and then you have to pass another resolution, and that one is to proceed, and that one goes down to the Board of Elections, and then they do their job and get it on the ballot. So we definitely need to get that renewal levy done. That's a big factor in the financial health of the district. And as we move through, we always keep this in the back of our mind. That is, it's money that taxpayers graciously provide the school district. It's not my money or your money. It's everybody's money, and it comes out of everybody's pocket. So we have to be very conscious of the stewardship of those dollars. I was on the other side, on the auditor side, when I first started my career, so I was making sure people were spending their dollars correctly, following the rules. That's kind of carried over in my whole career of watching, and minding that that's a real fiduciary responsibility. Last thing, just to show, that we do watch what we're doing. There's the Twinsburg's per pupil expenditures. That's from the CUP report of 19. That's the most recent one that's out there. And then if you look there's our neighboring districts and the state average. So Twinsburg's actually is lower than the state average. We're lower than similar districts, and we're lower than all our neighbors around us. So, I think that's a great measure of fiscal responsibility. We've had a fund balance that could have been spent, and we could have, been spending at a higher level. But we did watch what we were spending it on, justified expenditures, and really kind of kept expenditures in line to get a good product out. So it's just kind of a slide to show fiscal responsibility, that we do watch the spending as best we can. And that's it. So any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Aho, I have a couple questions on just assumptions, if you can entertain me for a minute. So why are we assuming 11% decrease in property tax over the next 5 years?
What's that?
Why are we assuming a 5% decrease in property tax revenues in the next 5 years? Where's that coming from?
Property tax doesn't decrease, it stays flat.
The state plan is, so on the state website they provide that?
She didn't hear what you said, Mr. Aho.
The property taxes stay flat. They don't decrease.
I'm sorry, one more time, can you explain that to me?
Property taxes stay flat. They don't decrease. If you look at you're probably looking at it and not taking into account the emergency levy down at the bottom.
No, I'm looking at line 1.010. We
Right.
have 11% decline between 2021 and 2025 in general property tax.
That's because of the renewal levy.
It has nothing to do with the renewal levy. Oh, you're saying because we're not going to get the renewal levy, that's where the 5% is coming from? So it would be flat if we added them together?
Are you looking at the slide where the renewal levy is pulled out?
I'm looking at the actual forecast right now.
It did go down.
So it would be flat if they were added together, somewhat flat.
Yeah.
There's some numbers there. Okay. So that helps, thank you. And then as far as line 3.010, the personal services, can you explain to me what % of that's contractually obligated and what % is discretionary? In other words, we've already put into our contracts for certificated and classified staff, some salary growth versus added heads?
Yeah, most of the collective bargaining agreements have about a 2%, give or take, annual increase. So you have that effect. You also have step increases. So you need to take that into consideration. What I do here is basically there's a program that's in state software that's called the Project. And you can, it basically will project, and they spell it funny because they've got like 3 or 4 different ones that they've had to accommodate. So that one's Project. So they actually give you the numbers out of state software to project it forward. So that's what we use, and it takes into consideration the steps and the percentage increases.
Yeah, so that's 5 million on 30 million. What I'm getting at is that doesn't really, I think, include just what's already been negotiated. So I'm trying to understand how many additional heads are included in those numbers and the assumptions for additional heads.
Well, we don't necessarily put a specific, this is how many people we're going to hire. If you don't need people, you don't hire them. Which is, I think, evident over the
I'm
years.
just wondering what the forecast numbers, how much of it is what the model says has already been built in from the steps and the additional increases, and how much of that is from additional heads?
Well, some of it, as you saw before on the COVID, on the one where we had the COVID cost in there, you can see that there was the $1.8 million. That was for extra hands on deck. So you got a $1.8 million that we're looking at, that we've hired to help out because of COVID, extra cleaning, whatever else, teachers,
And most of that was 1 year, right?
hopefully, when COVID goes away.
So that shouldn't be in the 2021 to 2025 numbers, correct?
Yeah, those numbers are scaled back a little bit, but there's going to be some growth to it.
Okay, so it's a 12% increase. That's pretty big. So I'm just trying to understand about how much of that is sunk. Magnitude, is it half? Is it 80%? Is it 20%?
Most of it's growing at a 4.1% overall. So if you take a look at the overall numbers, they're growing at 4.1%. Really, the numbers too kind of match on the last year's May. They're not too different than last year's May forecast. So there's really not a big difference in the numbers. Except for
Yeah, and I'm
adding
just
in
getting
the-
myself a little bit more immersed in the financials and understanding them. Okay, so as far as the details go, I don't here we know the actual number of FTEs that we have put in the assumption for administrative or certificated or classified staff on these. Is that correct?
Pardon, what was that again?
We don't have actual assumptions on FTE counts on line 3.010 for administrative, certificated, or classified staff. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, we don't say that we're going to need people that we don't know that we're going to need them or not. I don't know how you say I'm going to need extra several people if there's no need there. So,
If I'm hearing the question correctly, Mrs. Gordon, you're asking how many heads do we forecast in addition to contractual obligations, and that's not how we've ever hired. We don't say.
I'm just trying to figure out the split in this assumption. How much are we expecting as far as salary growth of existing staff versus additional staff? That's all.
I don't know.
It's not how we operate.
I don't know.
Okay, all right, I'll move on to the next one. Do we have an idea on line 3.020, what percent of that increase in expenditure on insurance benefits, retirement benefits comes from healthcare?
Well, 14% of salary is retirement, and then the rest of it's the healthcare. Healthcare is about $650,000 a month, so
$650 a month is the healthcare cost right now?
Is in the ballpark, yeah.
I'm sorry, so 14 a month is retirement? I'm sorry, the rest is retirement.
Correct.
All right, that's fine, thank you. And then, so do we have an additional assumption built in here for inflation anywhere? Or is that just embedded in the 4.1% that you're putting in personal services?
Yeah, that's just embedded in a 4.1. I mean, why would you want to go 4.1 and then add more numbers together and just confuse the issue? If you can just take the trend and see what that is, we haven't had any big jumps in inflation lately. It's been pretty stable, so I would think past performance would pretty much indicate future trends.
Well, and to be fair, that's not really inflation. That's just what we've actually increased our spend year over year.
Well, you asked about inflation.
It hasn't really met the actual inflation in the markets. And then the last question I have is the CARES Act narrative. I didn't see that in here. What section do you have the CARES Act dollars in the narrative?
Well, CARES Act dollars are not part of the general forecast. That's its own separate fund. It's federal money. So that goes into a separate fund. It's accounted for separately, so it's not part of the 5-year forecast. It does help alleviate some of the expenditures, but it's not part of the 5-year forecast. It's not general fund money.
All right.
Is that primarily because we're not expected, year after year to get that? That's, in this
Yeah,
case,
that's
it was a
one-time money.
one-time.
Absolutely,
It
yeah.
could be one time, it could be 2 times, but.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I get
similar,
that.
similar
I was
to
just
what
expecting to read
happened
about it
when the mortgage crisis, and they had the ARA money at that time. They gave the ARA money out, special federal funding. This CARES money is basically tied to Title I funding. It's kind of under that umbrella. It's not necessarily Title I money, but it's under that CFDA title umbrella. So it comes in as federal dollars. We have to follow the federal guidelines. So, all that stuff that goes with that. And then that's reported in a separate fund with its own separate cost center. And then all that gets reported at the end of the year. It gets rolled up and put in the federal schedule that the auditors look at, and they attest that.
And Mr. Aho,
Okay.
don't forget about the county
you.
CARES Fund dollars we also received. So there's an additional about $400,000.
Yeah, we received some
I'm
other
sorry, I'm
additional
sorry, I
CARES
didn't
money
hear
too.
that. What was that?
That's federal dollars also. So that's also in a federal fund for the special
Right.
cost center.
The
Adrian,
county's
you're
just
talking
sharing
about
that
the
with us.
Summit CARES, the additional CARES
Understood.
money.
Mr. Aho, could you, and I know that this isn't finalized yet, but I'm referencing House Bill 305 and kind of where things are right now. It's looking pretty promising that there's probably going to be some action in the lame duck session. And I know that recently it was released some projections, if you will, with respect to what districts can expect or how they will be impacted by the bill in its current version, not taking into account anything that might happen in conference or as it moves through the General Assembly. But based on those numbers, are you able to kind of talk a little bit about what the potential impact would be on our 5-year forecast?
Yeah, one of the big things for Twinsburg schools is because we're a capped district, the formula is not working for us. It's not working for the vast majority of school districts in the state of Ohio. It's just a formula that's out there that doesn't do much of anything. So for Twinsburg, if they can get the formula to start working, it would be a huge benefit to get us off the cap. Right now, the formula that's not working says we should get about $9 million. We get a $5-6 million. And the difference is $3.2 million that we don't receive that we're capped. So if they can work through the funding models, it looks like that cap would be basically funded, and we should be getting the dollars that are calculated to come to us. Basically now the calculation says we should get $9 million, we get $3.2 million less, and every year we get $3.2 million less than what we should be getting according to the current funding model. So this Cup-Patterson funding model really looks at the basic building blocks of education, and it goes through what it would take to, educate a child. It looks at a lot of different aspects, and then basically they calculate what your funding level should be. I think it's a pretty good model. I really think it'd be great to see that go through.
I'd like to throw out just a big caution, because we've been down this road before. I've only been around 7 years. School funding's been unconstitutional, 4 times? And I highly caution of saying any numbers, because last time all the numbers were published, everybody said, oh, you're getting all this money, and then they pulled it 2 weeks into the biennium budget.
Right.
So, I just want to be very, very cautious not to share numbers, not talk numbers, because they're not real until we have them. And we need to stay the course with the current levy. This levy is part of the homestead, rollback, so if we were to have to, put new money on, homeowners would have additional costs. Right now, there's that savings and renewal. It's not a new tax. I'm always impressed by the per pupil slide, but when it comes to the Cup-Patterson, I know, Mark, it seems like it's very positive, but they pulled it at the last time. We're in a lame duck session. I just don't want to say any numbers, because we just don't know until this is passed, and don't count on it. And they've changed on us before.
Yeah, we saw
so
it
I don't
before.
want to plan our financial future on if comes and maybes.
Yeah.
Just because.
I think it was under Governor Casey.
Yeah, I mean, there was all kinds of editorials, and don't renew levies because they're getting all this money, and it was a pipe dream. So, let's be very, very cautious.
Well, and again, I'm not, I don't want.
You can be hopeful.
Well, no, and well, to be clear, I don't want anyone to misinterpret my question, because we can't plan on money that we don't have.
Right.
This is legislation, and there's a process that happens, and it, regardless of whether it's funding or anything else, it has to go through a process. And so, I guess I should qualify my question by making sure that everyone understands that when I say the current version of the bill, it is highly likely to change, which may or may not impact any monies that, or any increases that we might see, even if they remove the cap. The formula still could change. There are many aspects of the bill that could change, but I want to also make sure that people understand how significant this is and the moment that we're at right now, because of what you alluded to with state funding being ruled unconstitutional 4 times, and it's been over 20 years since the last ruling. So I think that, obviously we have to be realists and not plan for money that's not here, but I want to make sure that the community understands really what's going on legislatively and what Columbus is trying to do, because it's taken a long time for them to actually try to do the right thing with respect to more fair and equitable funding for all districts, because the bottom line is the way that things are right now, it's too heavily reliant on property taxes. We don't like having to come back to the community, every other year, either, asking for a renewal to be, or a levy to be renewed, or even the possibility that we may need new money down the road. So it's pretty significant that this bill is even in play right now. And so, I just wanted to, get a sense of what the impact would be should it happen. And again, based on what we're hearing, and Mrs. Powers, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been strong indication that they want to take action during the lame duck.
That is correct. There's the companion bill there too, and I think what we've been looking at mainly are simulated numbers. So to Mr. Felber's point, the work teams behind the scenes, and it's made up of administrators throughout the state as well as legislative folks, is trying to figure out what does it cost to educate a child. And so taking that philosophy then and merging that with dollars, is an interesting process. And indeed, it's a long time in coming. But I applaud Cut Patterson for continuing this important work. I applaud the members of the team who've really worked hard. I applaud the Alliance for High Quality Education, who once again is working diligently along with BASA and OASBO and OSBA to hopefully change the way public school districts are funded in Ohio, so that all school districts, regardless of what your zip code happens to be, has the right amount of money in order to support the children that attend those schools. And so that's what this is really all about. We're just one of the many districts who are capped, and there are districts who are guaranteed. There's all kinds of different ways that school financing is done, or funds are provided. And so we're hopeful. I'm hopeful this can happen, but passing the legislation will also mean they'll have to find the money to do it. And public education is just one piece of a big puzzle. So hopefully this will pass. We're working hard to advocate for it with our legislators. And I'm very hopeful that Representative Weinstein and Senator Rogner understand the importance of this legislation for our school district as well as the others that they represent, so that that is looked upon favorably by them, and this can move forward. So I appreciate your work behind the scenes with that too, Marty. Mark, I know you're close to advocacy efforts at the state level and national level too, of course, this year. So again, all simulated data. They have to figure out the language first and then find the dollars to support legislation, and we're hopeful that that might happen.
And the only other thing that I would add, if my colleagues don't have any other questions, you mentioned about, and we talked about this in our last work session, where we went a little bit more in depth with respect to the 5-year forecast, and more importantly, looking at the financial strategic flow chart and the timing of the renewal levy that we have coming up. Looking at a resolution, our first resolution in December, I just want to, reiterate, at least the board's desire from the last work session that, we were looking to get it on the next possible time, which would be May. And then the next resolution, or at least the first resolution kicking that off would be, we'd be shooting for the November meeting, correct?
Yeah, December 16th meeting.
I'm sorry, the December meeting. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aho. Mrs. Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Aho. Our second administrative report this evening is in regard to the first look at our 21-22 academic calendar. That just sounds so strange to say 21-22, but here we are. And Board of Education, as you know, by statutory language, we will present the calendar proposal this evening, and the community has, according to statute, 30 days to provide feedback before the board would take action. Well, if you count the days between tonight and December 16th, it's 29 days, so that's not enough time. So the board cannot take action until the December 6th meeting on the calendar, just because of the timing of the calendar this year. So this evening, I just want to talk through some of the highlights of the calendar. Again, the calendar was proposed by the Twinsburg Education Association's Labor Management Committee. They met a couple months ago to take a look at the calendar, and they did this a different way this year. They're very cognizant of the fact that because of the pandemic, we really don't know a lot about what 21-22 will look like, because we don't know much about how this pandemic is going to continue to ebb and flow over the rest of this year and the next year. And so they were rather creative in their approach to the calendar. We had a lot of conversation about the benefits of the soft reopening week, and how the staff members, the students, and from the parents they heard from appreciated the soft reopening week, because it was a great transition for students to come in, get to know their teachers. We did a little bit of baseline testing. Students got familiar with their classmates, although it was just a quarter of students from a classroom at a time. And it was a good beginning of the year. We also allowed an opportunity this current year to have a longer runway into the soft reopening week that provided in-depth professional development for our staff. Remember, we were moving classrooms, people were in different places, and so because of the fact that we're not quite certain what the beginning of next year may look like, the staff would like to also copy that approach, but do something else in addition to it. And I'm going to talk about that when we get to the second semester on the calendar. Board of Education, before the 15-16 school year, we didn't used to count hours. It was all about the number of days. And then legislation occurred, and then they converted days to hours. And up on the slide, you'll see that for our 3 bands of children, for kindergarten children, it's 455 hours a year. For full-day kindergarten children through grade 6, it's 910 hours per year. And for students in grades 7 through 12, it's 1,001 hours per school year. And so we needed to make sure that when we created the templates, that the amount of time that our children would be in school would meet the requirements here. And we like to exceed that rather, because you don't know about calamity days, you don't know what the weather will look like. And so we've built in some extra time for emergency situations, such as what happened this week with the calamity day consideration, although we just had a 2-hour delay instead of a whole day because of the power outages and road detours. So, Mrs. Farthing, if you could move the slide up one. Here's a look at the calendar, and I know it's small, I apologize for that, but I'll read through some of the highlights of this calendar. For the sake of the soft reopening a week, it will be the week of August 23rd on the calendar, which will mean that all of our students will then report to school officially together on Monday, August 30th. Our students would not have school on Tuesday, September 7th, as that will be a curriculum day, and this is also the Rosh Hashanah holiday for our Tigers of the Jewish faith, so our students would not be in school that day and can celebrate the holy day with their families. Also, on September 16th, which is also one of the days of Yom Kippur, that has been designated as a day-to-day, which again would mean that the students would not have school and then again could celebrate the holy day with their family. Winter break would once again be 2 full weeks beginning on Monday, December 20th, with school resuming on Monday, January 3rd. Now that's a little switch because we usually have the first day back from winter break being a teacher work day, professional development day. This time, everybody comes back the same day on Monday, January 3rd. And I mentioned a minute ago that there's also something different in January, and if you take a look at the calendar, you'll see that because we're starting a week later than has been tradition here, our end of the semester will be Friday, January 14th. But then the following week, that Monday is Martin Luther King Day. The students would actually not be in session the entirety of Martin Luther King Day week. Staff would be here. They would have their records day to calculate first semester grades on that Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of that week would be considered professional development, transitioning to the second semester. And again, a lot of this was built into the calendar because we're not quite sure what next year will bring. We wanted to put some safety nets into place so that we can be planful, so that we're not shifting gears in the summer for families. We have the nets built in before we even get to next year. Spring break would be scheduled from Monday, March 28th through Friday, April 1st, with students returning on Monday, April 3rd. And Board of Education, we had a lot of conversation about state testing and where should spring break land. We think that having spring break in March clears that from the decks before state testing really kicks into full gear. So although it's not attached traditionally as it used to be to the Easter holiday weekend, we think this is a better placement given the fact that we have tests to consider in the month of April. And then finally, the last day of school for the school year for our students would be Friday, May 27th, with our staff returning on Tuesday, May 31st, the day after Memorial Day, to finish up their responsibilities for the school year. So I'd like to thank again the members of our Labor Management Relations Committee who developed the calendar template again this year. And once more, the academic calendar will appear on the January 6th Board of Education meeting. So parents, if you have feedback you'd like us to consider, if you could send me an email, and in the subject line, put academic calendar so that I could share those thoughts with the Board of Education. You will notice Board of Education this evening on the agenda under the new business item. By statutory requirements, there will be what we'll consider the first public hearing of this academic calendar proposal, and then we'll put it to the side until January 6th for further consideration. Any questions? No?
Questions?
Thank you. Mr. Aho, I agree. It's really hard to present with these masks on. Okay. Board of Education, our next presentation is going to take some time because this is the presentation that talks about the data that we gathered from our parent surveys and our staff surveys regarding COVID-19 in the second semester of the year. I'm choosing to remain here in this place instead of speaking from the podium because my administrative colleagues this evening from central office have helped to prepare this presentation, and I've asked them if they have things that they would like to add during my comments to please come forward and to assist with the presentation. So that's the reason why we're where we are this evening. As I said, Board of Education, this evening I'll present a summary of the data that we collected from our parents and from our staff members regarding COVID-19 and the second quarter of the school year. I would like to thank our parents and our staff members for providing their feedback through these two companion surveys. There's a lot of emotion, misinformation, and concern related to the uncertainties of this pandemic. Our district's priority is, and always has been, to focus on the safety of our students, our staff, and our Tiger families. As your school superintendent, I remain grounded in data, and I use data to make recommendations to the Board of Education. This evening, you will find that I will highlight various data points, and at the conclusion of this presentation, I will provide recommendations to the board for your further discussion and determination. To begin, we look to our district's current data with regard to positive COVID cases. Board of Education, I'm extremely pleased to tell you that today is the second day in a row that we have not had one positive case. So it's only 2 days in a row, but I'm thankful and grateful for that data for today. And what you'll see on the chart is the data that is from November 10th through the 17th. You'll notice that there's a grand total of 25 positive cases, including 3 staff members. Also inclusive in there, and I think it's interesting to note, Board, that when we are taking a look at our positive cases, not only do we identify the students or the staff member, but I'm always interested to know if the students are on-campus students or if they're virtual academy students. And as you can see, we have a little bit of both. So students who are staying home are also experiencing some of this trend of outbreak, and it's just something interesting that we're watching, and of course to be cognizant when we're talking about our district's data in total. Additionally, our district nurse, Jennifer Pinkney, and our interim director of human resources, Belinda McKinney, are tracking student and staff quarantines. The individuals noted on this document have not tested positive for COVID-19, but rather are being quarantined because of a close contact with another person who tested positive. Again, a quarantine situation does not equate to a person confirming positive for COVID-19. In many of these cases, quarantines occur because of close contact with a family member. The next slide is from the Summit County Public Health Department's website, and it illustrates cumulative COVID-19 cases by zip code. Although the print is very small, I apologize to you for that. You can visit the scph to find this particular document. You will note that 44087, which is our zip code, is noted as having 504 accumulated cases, the third highest accumulated number in Summit County. A comparison of our district's data against this zip code data will tell you that community spread is happening in the greater community of 44087, but not necessarily in our school district due to our strong COVID-19 health and safety protocols. We appreciate our parents and staff members who completed our surveys. As you can see, 1,783 parents responded and 455 members of our staff responded. What was interesting, board, is there were approximately 300 duplicate responses. So before we analyze the data, we remove the duplicates just to make sure that there was just really one response from every family. Our survey asked 2 prompts. The first one asked for feedback regarding the continuation of our current on-campus and virtual academy options. And those prompts said, I believe the district should stay the course with students attending classes either on campus or in the Twinsburg Virtual Academy. I believe we should pivot to 100% remote learning at home through winter break, which is January 5th. Or I believe that we should pivot to 100% remote learning at home through Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is January 18th of 21. So, beginning with slide number 6, we have the responses from our parents who have students who attend classes on campus. And you will note that the majority of these parents would like the district to stay the course, with an overall percentage of 73.7%. As you will note, the percentages are higher for grades pre-K through 6. On slide 7, the majority of the parents of our students who attend the Twinsburg Virtual Academy believe that the district should pivot to 100% remote learning through the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. This data shows that the parents who already select for their children to learn remotely from home are confident in their personal decisions. Slide 8. This slide combines our on-campus parent feedback with our virtual academy parent feedback, finding that the majority, or 58.8%, believe that the district should stay the course. The next slide, slide 9, illustrates the feedback we received from our certificated staff members. This is an interesting chart, as it would appear that our elementary staff members have more of a preference for the district to stay the course, while our middle and high school staff members have a strong preference for the district to pivot to 100% remote learning through the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Overall, 44% of our staff members believe that the district should stay the course. The next prompt on our survey regards our athletic and extracurricular activities. Please note that this does not include our co-curricular activities, as students receive grades or credit for their participation in co-curricular activities. The 3 choices for this prompt were, I believe our district should stay the course with students attending classes, extracurricular activities. The 3 prompts indicated that we should begin to have athletic programs as long as each of the activities are approved by the Summit County Public Health Department. And Board of Education, as you know, each of our plans for each of the sports and all of our activities receive a review by health officials at Summit County. As of today, they put a pause on approving many of our winter sports programs. In fact, the only ones that were approved prior to today, I haven't looked at my emails today, were the students who are swimming on our swim team and practice and tryouts for basketball. And all of the plans have been submitted with the exception of bowling, as we were waiting further guidance from the Ohio High School Athletic Association. So this is interesting. We don't have all of our plans back, but one of the prompts for our parents and staff to consider talks about moving the sports programs forward as long as the plans were authorized by the county health officials. The second part of this question, the answer would have been that the parents would prefer that we would pause on activities until November 30th and then use current data to decide whether the sports programs and extracurricular activities can continue. And with this date in mind, we were thinking through whether or not there should be a period of self-quarantine around the Thanksgiving Day holiday, and that's how that date was selected in this question. And then the third one talks about our athletics and our other extracurricular programs pausing until winter break is concluded, and that the students return on January 5th and would begin their programming then. So overall, our parents were quite split in their feedback regarding whether we should stay the course with our programs or pause, with 40.1% suggesting that the programs continue as long as the plans for each program are reviewed by health officials. And that's countered by 14.5% of our parents desiring to pause programs until November 30th, and 45.4% of our parents believing that our program should pause until after winter break. So that one's all over the place, actually. With regard to our staff members, 17% of our staff members believe we should pause our programs until November 30th, while the majority, or 52%, believe that we should pause on all of our programs until after winter break. The next slide. As our district was collecting data regarding our athletic programs and extracurricular activities, the Ohio High School Athletic Association was also collecting statewide feedback with similar prompts. School superintendents, high school principals, and athletic directors were asked to submit their responses. And as you can see by the slide, the majority of respondents, or 56%, felt that the winter sports contests, as they are currently planned, should begin as planned. That's an interesting counter to the data that we have here in our school district. On to the next slide. As your central office leadership team reviewed the data, we also reviewed a number of other data points to inform our recommendations to you. To begin, we took a look at the teacher absences, as we know that schools and students are dependent upon our staff. What is interesting in this data is the fact that teacher absences have been fewer each of the 3 months of this school year as compared to 1 year ago. However, what you will also see on this slide is that the fill rate for these teacher absences is less this year as compared with last year. And board, that's just not a Twinsburg issue. That's you will hear that from every superintendent you would talk to, and the fact that finding substitute teachers has been a struggle this year because many of our substitutes from years past are retired teachers who choose not to come onto campus, especially because they are a little older in age, more veteran in the field, and are selecting not to do that this year. So we are not unlike other districts where our fill rate is not as great as it was a year ago. Board, as you know from the letters I send with great frequency regarding our COVID-positive students and staff, I've been tracking attendance. This slide, however, is a comparison of 2 weeks' attendance, the most recent week from this school year, against the similar week from 1 year ago. What we found interesting is that the student attendance from this year is quite similar to last year's student attendance at the very same time of the year. We appreciate the board's approval of our initial school reopening plan, whereby we reconfigured our school buildings to ensure the gold standard with regard to health and safety protocols. We believe the following safety nets are providing extra layers of protection from the virus for our students and our staff members. Board of Education, our 6-foot social distancing protocol is really the saving grace in all of this. Because we are able to confirm with our teachers and other members of our staff that when we have a positive COVID case in any of our buildings, we are able to confirm the 6-foot social distance has occurred while the child or staff member is here. The county health officials would then tell us that we would not need to quarantine other people that are in that classroom or that space as long as that 6-foot social distancing protocol is in place. And, this 6-foot social distancing protocol has had a lot of conversation in the months since the pandemic started. Some school districts were not able to do what we did and have distances maybe between 3 and 6 feet. But thanks to the efforts here of our staff members, where we were able to reconfigure where students are going to school this year, we can honestly say that in our classrooms, the students are seating each other 6 feet away from each other, and teachers are being seated at least 6 feet away from the students they serve. And the protocols in the hallways with the 6-foot social distancing are standard in all of our buildings. Ms. Villa mentioned how the little ones walk with their hands out. They truly do that. I've seen them do that. And we have stickers on the floor to remind the children how they should be proceeding in the hallways. Lots of reminders of, just being kind reminders to each other, gentle reminders when we see somebody not doing the right thing. So our staff and our kids here, our Tigers, are doing all they can to follow the protocols that have been set forth by the health officials. And I really believe that that is why our numbers of quarantine cases haven't gone through the roof, because we are able to maintain being on campus because we have those things in place. In addition to the 6-foot social distancing, thanks to the board's policy, masking is required at all times in our district except for mask breaks and for when children are eating lunch. Hand sanitization protocols are in place. We have our cleaning protocols in place. Mr. Welker has done an outstanding job. He was forward-thinking way back in February in buying misters before most people even knew what a mister was. And so we were ahead of the curve, and that's common to see the custodial staff walking around the building and misting and spraying quat-based disinfectant throughout the school days. All those things are in place. Thanks to Dr. Walker's leadership, our clinics are doing a fantastic job. She recommended, and we moved forward on providing N95 masks for clinic personnel and for members of the custodial staff. So when they're cleaning up bodily fluids, everybody is masked and gloved as they should be. We also have a full-time district nurse on staff, and I have to tell you, board, Jen Pinkney is doing a huge job. Every day she's talking with parents, she's providing information to me, and we are conferring several times a day, keeping kids safe, and I really appreciate her effort. She's doing a great job. And then we have redundancies in our clinics with our health care coverage. And I know that our principals have been very reliant on having the health care coverage that we do this year. It's a great thing that we know the kids are being taken care of when they don't feel well. We know that the health care folks are making the calls home. They're staying with our health care folks till the parents can pick them up from school, or in the case of the high school, till we get permission to send the student home who drove to school. And so all these things are working well in tandem. And then this last thing, the pivot room, Mr. Welker and I were trying to find a delicate way of describing what this is. So in a case where we have a student who becomes sick in school, a vomit situation, what the protocols are from the Summit County Board of Health is you have to close that room down for 24 hours. And so because we have moved around the district, all of the students and people are in different places, we have the availability for classrooms to pivot to a new room while we close that room down, while the custodial staff is in there to disinfect the room and make it prepared for the students to return in 24 hours. So we have all of these protocols in place, which are really making a difference, and which I really believe is the reason why we're doing a pretty good job with regard to keeping our kids on campus as safe as we are. The next slide will tell you that even with all of these protocols in place, realistically, staff members may be absent and students may be absent. And so we, as an administrative team, in conjunction with our teaching staff, have considered some additional things to put into place, because when teachers are quarantined home, perhaps their spouse tested positive, perhaps their child is waiting for a COVID test, but they're not sick and they can continue to teach. So we have put some things into place here that will eliminate some or alleviate some of the stress on the substitute situation. And so I'd like to talk to you about some of our academic options. First and foremost, board, back in, I want to say, August or September, you passed a policy revision for 5200, which is the student attendance board policy. On that policy, there is a specific place that talks about remote attendance during the 2021 school year. It was built especially for situations where we have kids who are either participating in the virtual academy or for students who are pivoted out because of a COVID situation, whether they test positive and have to be home in isolation, or whether they have to go home because there's a quarantine situation. So the board was very forefront in their thinking and put together a policy that actually provides opportunities for students not to be counted absent when they're home in those circumstances, because they continue to learn and do their schoolwork and connect back with their teachers during the school day. So we thank you, Board of Education, for having the foresight to do that. That is very helpful to us, and that would allow our students to continue learning while they're at home and also getting credit for the work that they're doing while they're home, either being isolated or quarantined due to COVID-19. Further, Board of Education, thanks to your generosity, this year we hired the quarantine substitute teachers, who are one for each of our buildings, and their work has been extremely important, because what that is, what these teachers do is when we have a quarantine situation or when we have a student test positive for COVID, and thankfully most of the students who have tested positive for COVID have not experienced terrible conditions as far as symptoms go. Most of them are showing upper respiratory as far as like a sinus infection. Some have headaches, some have fatigue, and some don't have a sense of taste or smell. But we're not seeing so far, thank goodness, any of our students who had the significant breathing issues. None have been hospitalized, thank goodness. And so they're able to continue to do their schoolwork when they can. The quarantine students who are home because of a close contact to a family member or a different circumstance can also continue to learn from home. So let me give you an example. In the case of Wilcox Primary School, Mrs. Ann Larson is our quarantine substitute teacher. So if there's a quarantine situation with a Wilcox Tiger, Ms. Villa informs Mrs. Larson to please contact this child's family and to invite the child into a Google Classroom. So she's the go-between the classroom teacher who's busy with the students on her caseload, either in the virtual academy or on campus, and she goes between the classroom teacher and the student and his or her parent to make sure the student is getting instruction, getting provided with support, and continues to do their schoolwork while at home. And this is really working out quite well. So I thank you, Board, for your generosity in allowing us to hire these quarantine substitute teachers to support learning in these very strange times. The next thing that we have been working through and has been successful in a big way, actually, at Mr. Holland's building in the last week or so, are teleworking teachers. So in the case of a teleworking teacher, a teacher is quarantined at home, but her class might be on the campus of Twinsburg High School. So thankfully, with the use of technology, we are able to use the classroom projectors with a camera, and the teacher continues to teach her class lessons while she's in her home. We have a substitute teacher or an aide in the classroom on the campus at Twinsburg High School, and so learning continues. So we're doing this in a very creative approach to ensure that our kids continue to have quality instruction, although their teacher may not be present with them in their classroom. And then the last idea that we have had great success actually came to me from a recommendation of a group of teachers at Twinsburg High School. A couple weeks back, Ms. Fink, who is the president of Twinsburg Education Association, and I did a tour of the district, and we met with teachers in each of the buildings. And upon our meeting with the high school staff over on the RBC campus, we were introduced to this idea of screen sharing. And what that is classroom teachers here in class, and a student may be home in a quarantine situation. The classroom teacher at her desk can enter that child into her Google Classroom and then screen share. She can project on the classroom screen what her classroom students are also seeing, so that the student who is quarantined can continue to participate in the lessons in real time. So our teachers have been very creative in continuing to connect with their students, whether they're at home in a quarantine situation or whether the student is at home in a quarantine situation. And the beautiful thing about this board is that learning continues. It continues on track with the other students in the class, whether the class is virtual or whether the class happens to be on campus. And so we're very appreciative of our staff members who have actually brought these ideas forward to us and said, hey, we can do this, let's use technology, let's try to see if this might work. So I thank the teachers who have stepped it up and have brought new ideas to us. I thank our technology staff, especially Mrs. Farthing, who leads all of things academic here in the district, and she and, of course, Mr. Welker and his technology staff have done a great job of continuing education for students at home. So Board of Education, we talked about the survey data. We talked about what's going on and why we believe that things have gone pretty well here in the district, considering the community spread around us. Indeed, the last couple of weeks, we've had a bump in our numbers, and we all know that when we have things happen outside of the school day at which our students are congregating in ways that don't follow safety and health protocols, we're going to have those kinds of things happen. And the board, you've asked me several times, well, how do you know, should we pivot out? What is the percentage? Over the last week or so, I've been talking with my superintendent colleagues in Summit County, and honestly, there's not one data point that you can use because things keep changing on us. But what I can tell you is that the Central Office Administrative Team and I are really under the belief that in any circumstance that may show itself, what we want to do is use multiple variable data points to make a decision as to whether or not a school or the district should pivot out. And so we developed a decision-making matrix that defines the variables that we will consider when determining the need to pivot to remote teaching and learning. And those variables are marked up here on the screen, and I'll read them for you. Of course, staff COVID-19 related absences is always going to be one of those things that we continue to watch. You know, Mrs. McKinney is our interim Director of Human Resources in place of Mr. Soll, and she's doing a great job. Dropped her right in the middle of a pandemic, and she's done a great job of catching up, and she's tracking staff attendance. You know, this is one of those things, board, that is a work in progress with regard to ensuring that we can cover classrooms, that we have teachers, but you see we're trying to be creative in some of the other ways that we're getting that done using technology. We also need to consider where we have spot substitution availability. And so this is one of those opportunities when we have a teacher who is absent, teachers have planning periods. And by the contract, they have a number of planning minutes in a given day. If a teacher has a planning period and we have a teacher absence issue happen, we can ask the teacher who has the planning period to spot sub in that classroom, and they're compensated for that time. We don't like to overuse this because planning is important. Teachers need to have a minute to take a breath, to make a copy of something, perhaps to use the restroom, to make a phone call, to conference with kids. And so spot substitution is available, is something that we are cognizant that we don't want to overuse, but it is an opportunity for us to cover a vacant classroom situation when a teacher is absent if we have to. The next thing that we want to take a look at is our actual COVID-19 cases at each building. And we also, it's not just a data point in a given day. The last 2 weeks, it can tell you we've had a number of cases at the high school campus at RBC, and we've been watching that. But I've been most interested because in those cases, for the most part, we're able to identify the connection between them. And there's a science to all of this, and yes, we've had 5 cases in one grade and 5 cases in another grade per the data that we showed you on one of the first charts. But when you're talking about a pandemic, it's data, and it's data over a period of time, and a percentage against what attendance should look like for that particular grade. But this is one of the variables that we would be looking at, is the sustained period of time when we would have a spread in a given grade or a given set of classrooms or a given building. The next thing we want to make sure that we're cognizant of course, is the greater community and the outbreak that is cases in our zip code. And as I mentioned to you earlier, we've been watching the zip code issue. To tell you the truth, board, probably since the first charts that the county posted on their website, Twinsburg has been pretty high for community spread. So the chart that I shared with you this evening didn't startle me for this week because it's been high for some time. And those of you who are watching that data understand that it's been high. for some time with regard to the county spread or the community spread. The other thing we're going to look at would be county and state and federal guidelines, and of course the health orders. We spend a lot of time reviewing the health orders. I'm very appreciative to Health Commissioner Donna Skoda and Environmental Director Tanya Burford from Summit County Public Health. They have been tremendous partners with us. As a matter of fact, this afternoon we were on a call with them. Every Wednesday afternoon, the Summit County superintendents have a personal phone call with Donna Skoda and Tanya Burford, and we talk through the data, we talk about our circumstances, we share ideas, and that has been the best set of phone calls and conferences that we've had since the March pandemic occurred. So we thank Donna and Tanya and all of the staff members at Summit County Public Health. They are tremendous partners, not just to Twinsburg schools, but to all public school districts in the county. And of course, the national updates from the CDC are also important for us to consider as part of our matrix. So Board of Education, we talked a lot about the data tonight. We talked about what our parents said. We talked about what our staff members are worried about, what they're thinking through. We talked about other data points that we always consider: our staff absenteeism rates, our student absenteeism rates, what's going on at the county level, conversations that I have had with county health officials, conversations with my superintendent network and with the network not just locally but the statewide network through the Alliance. And so this evening, Board, I have a number of recommendations to present on behalf of the district leadership team from central office. And perhaps once I make these recommendations, the Board would like to engage in a conversation about each of these. So the first recommendation that we have has to do with school for students in preschool through grade 12. Based upon the current data, we recommend that our school districts stay the course with our on-campus and virtual academy options through winter break. And winter break this year will begin on Monday, December 21st. And then beginning on Tuesday, January 5th through Monday, January 18th, our recommendation will be that the students will pivot to 100% remote learning to provide a period of self-quarantine following the holidays. And what that's based on, Board of Education, what happened at Halloween really troubled me, because within 2 weeks following the Halloween festivities, we saw that pop at the high school level. And what I'm concerned about as your superintendent is that when we don't have students in school and we are on a break, our students are going to be out in the community and they're going to be attending family functions and maybe play groups when parents have to go to work. And what I'm very concerned about is without that period of self-quarantine, we potentially may have further spread in our school classrooms if we come immediately back from there without a period of quarantine with remote learning for that period of time. I do want to let you know, Board, that this afternoon I had a personal phone conversation with Tanya Burford from the County Health Department. I explained to her my thinking behind this. She supports my thinking. We talked a little bit about doing the same thing after the Thanksgiving holiday, and they had a different train of thought there. But this is an idea that I think has great merit because of the concern about what happens when students are away for 2 weeks from school, and the need to bring it back in, have kids go back to their 100% remote teaching and learning from home, have kids stay at home, have kids not congregate together, and then we're back to the races of school on Tuesday, January 18th, which is the day after MLK Day, where students will return to the selections that their parents have made in the October 2020 parent survey, whether the parents wanted their child to be on campus or they want the child to be in the virtual academy. So that would be our recommendation for the learning part of the survey for preschool through grade 12. With regard to our athletics and extracurricular activities, the recommendation
Mrs.
here...
Powers, can I just interrupt you 1 second? I'm sorry, the slides are a little bit behind. So the recommendation is to wait until December 21st. I didn't totally follow the Thanksgiving statement.
I'm sorry?
Thanksgiving.
Was there a recommendation specifically on coming back from Thanksgiving? I apologize, but the slides are delayed, so I'm trying to keep up, and I didn't pick up specifically what your recommendation was on Thanksgiving.
My recommendation did not include Thanksgiving, Mrs. Gordon. The recommendation is that we stay the course through winter break. And winter break begins on Monday, December 21st. And then students would be on winter break from the 21st until January 5th. On the 5th, they would return to classes, but all students would be learning remotely through Martin Luther King Day, which we don't have class on that day. So the Tuesday after MLK Day, the district would return to the process that we have now with students on campus and students in the virtual academy, whichever the parent has selected through the October 2020 parent survey.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with regard to athletics and extracurricular activities, based upon our current data, we are recommending that our district pause all athletics and extracurricular activities until December 7th. And this one really has the self-quarantine tied to the Thanksgiving holiday. We would take a pause, and then on right before December 7th, we would take a look at our data. And I really think that it's the congregation of students that is troubling, and it is causing the spread in the community, and then of course it dribbles into the school district. But in this recommendation, everything would pause until December 7th, which would give us plenty of time after that quarantine, or after the holiday, to quarantine, self-quarantine, so the kids are not participating in congregate activities such as sports. And then thereafter, we would make the decision as to what will happen with sports beginning on December 7th. So I think part of this thinking in the recommendations here this evening, board, is wanting to make sure that we're not overzealous, being very careful, but also allowing for opportunities. We are very aware that especially our elementary school parents depend on us to ensure that their students are here on campus so they can go to work. That's always been a big consideration here. Likewise, we know that our high school students really need the social emotional part of being parts of teams. That's a big thing for them, whether it's a team of athletes or a team in the orchestra, a group of kids doing great things together. But when we have these things happen where we have holiday breaks and the likelihood of students not necessarily following the protocols that they do while they're on campus, I recommend that we take the pause and that we're careful in how the district moves forward with programs, and then ultimately how we move forward after winter break. 2 weeks away from classes, kids are going to be doing all kinds of neat things, right? But I'm not sure I can guarantee that these neat things are going to also include the protocols of masking and hand washing and social distancing. It's a layer of protection for our students and a layer of protection for our staff members too, so that quarantine period when they are remoting and learning from home, I'm hoping that they calm into, okay, it's back to school, back to business as usual, and then come the day after Martin Luther King Day, we can reopen the campuses for families who need us to have campuses open and really kick off the second semester for our virtual academy kids in a big way. Everybody feeling healthy, everybody getting ready for the second semester of great learning.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you said like around Christmas time, because of that, the kids congregating, things like that. What about Thanksgiving break?
Well, I think that was Mrs. Gordon's question too. So we clearly could do that. We could take a pause, and honestly, there are some districts that are considering going remote teaching and learning from Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving, right through winter break.
Yeah.
I balance that against the fact that our spread in our district is not, at this moment, for all grade levels, very great at all. If you looked at that, Jen, can you call up that first slide with the district data? All the way through grade, I think it's 5, we have 0. So I know that our elementary kids in particular are not experiencing the spread here. So I can't reconcile saying we should close.
But could you do it for the through 7 through 12, or at least the high school?
Well, we would need to base that on some kind of data to do that. If you look at those numbers, Mrs. DeFabio, and so at the high school level, I see, let's see, 10, 20 kids, right? Chad, I can't see all the numbers where I'm sitting.
Mrs. Powers, have you looked at the Ohio State COVID website recently, the school dashboard?
I look at all the information, Mrs. Gordon.
Do you know what we rank right now out of the 626 public districts for new cases in COVID on the school website specifically?
Why don't you share that with everybody?
We are currently 10 out of 660. We are number 10 in new cases, and we are 22 in cumulative cases since the beginning of COVID. We are 10 out of 2,774 districts, including private schools, and we are number 1 in the county. This is not positivity rate, this is new cases. I know we don't know where it's coming from. We can't say, okay, there's community spread, there's school spread, there's sports spread. I don't know if I care, but that's incredibly concerning to me, that we are 10th out of 626 districts, and we are certainly not 10th inside. So the community spread, or whatever this is right now, it is big in Twinsburg. And the other numbers that I thought were really interesting on the Summit County COVID website, there's a discussion on the community spread. I looked at 70 plus from October 30th to November 17th. So if you look at the growth in 70 plus, they grew cases 23%, and under 19 grew 118. So our kids are getting COVID 5 times faster than our seniors right now. We are pacing at the same level as the nursing home, or higher than the nursing homes, actually, significantly higher. It's to me, this is a conversation of this moment, the cases are high. 4 weeks from now, they could be extraordinary, right? Wherever that happens, what we can control, I don't know, but that's the data that I've seen today. I pulled the website for the state COVID yesterday. So there's a CSV file you can download every single district, and then of course the Summit County COVID everything's fine. So I just wanted to put it out there. That's the data I'm looking at. That's what's keeping me up.
Right, and we appreciate that data, Mrs. Gordon. What we look at here primarily is what's happening on our campuses with the data that I'm presenting this evening. And when you take a look at a population of students of 4,200 students, and this week we have 22 students as positive, I understand one child is too many children. That is the way I look at things.
And the problem is not just the baseline, right? It's the exponential growth, right? And so that's why when we start on the 30th and we have a cluster outbreak, it's going to continue to compound unless we change a variable. And so my other concern, to marry what Mrs. DeFabio just said, we've got kids coming home from Thanksgiving. A lot of kids are coming home from college, right? And they're going to be bringing stuff from college. So I don't see a difference in our risk between Thanksgiving and Christmas myself.
I want to see the kids in school, and I want to see the sports continue. I just don't want to see anybody get sick during the holidays after going through it. It was 2.5 weeks. That's going to take you through the holidays. And it's miserable. That's my only thing. As far as sports go, I'd rather see them start in January. Give it a chance. And start fresh come January. We didn't start fall sports right away. We started a month later. And again, it'd be after the holidays, the kids are back, families are back. I don't believe that the younger grades or the schools and the kids in the younger grades, as much as the high school kids.
That's where I think the problem lies, because they're still going to gather no matter what. That you're not going to stop. But I just don't want to see our staff and kids sick through that time, like through the holiday season and stuff like that. And yeah, and universities are closing come Thanksgiving. They're going to be home. That's going to be more of a spread, you know, or a chance to spread. But I'm kind of torn, because my heart is keep the kids in school. But again, if you don't have the staff, and the staff is out sick, and the kids are going to be sick, what is the benefit there? You're better off just kind of doing it remotely until after the new year, is my feeling.
Sorry. The other thing to note is if you look at the staff survey, right, it's really RBC and the high school, right? It's the middle school and the high school where the staff, I think they're fatigued. I know we talk about the social and emotional benefit of the kids being together, and I can say on the other hand, I've had a conversation with a mom whose daughter had 6 kids sitting around her pulled this week, and she's terrified, well, in the last week, right, between last week and this week, she's terrified to go to school right now. So there's the social and emotional impact of the fear of just being around it, so, and bringing it home. So I think it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all, but I really think we need to be very, very critical about what's happening in our teens. I agree with Mrs. DeFabio. I don't think this is the younger kids. I think they're compliant. I think that, you know, it's hard, right? When you're a teenager, it's hard to have self-discipline. But at the end of the day, that's where we're hurting right now.
I have a question, Mrs. Powers, with respect to the recommendation that you're making for athletics and extracurricular. I'm not so much concerned about, you know, when you're recommending that they start. I'm more interested in the accountability measures that will be in place with the athletes and their families. So if they're going to be required to quarantine for the period up until the time that you're recommending that we start, are they going to be required to agree to quarantine, or is there something? I'm interested in having something in place so that there's some accountability with respect to athletes that may not comply, thereby jeopardizing the other athletes and families that did. And this is going back to kind of what we experienced with the soccer team. I don't want to punish a whole lot of kids for the irresponsibility
of a few.
So, you know, I don't know that that's been considered. I'm throwing that out there as something that we might want to consider because they're extracurricular activities. You know, it's a privilege to do it, to participate. I can see that there's benefit, obviously. We've seen that this fall from a social emotional aspect. But what we also saw was that there was some irresponsibility that potentially put other kids and their families in jeopardy, and also their ability to continue the sport. I think we were very lucky that things unfolded at the end of the season. For the most part, everybody held it together throughout the season. But now that we've kind of had our first go around with this, and you know we're looking at winter, that's something that I would want to explore. The other question I have, and this goes back to the staff data, and again, you know, as Mrs. Gordon alluded to, you know, really the middle and the high school seem to be where there's some reluctance. You know, if we are to go along with these timelines that you're recommending, what about the staff? I know that we've done a lot of MOUs and working with the union around language so that we can accomplish the things that we need from an instructional standpoint and also from an operational standpoint. So for the periods of time where you're recommending that we go 100% remote, would the staff continue to report? Because when we went down, everybody went home, and then when we were 100%, yeah, I'm assuming that they were probably teaching from home. maybe I'm, but that's something I would be curious about as well.
Sure. So I'll do your second question first because that's the easier of the two. The answer would be yes. Staff would be reporting to campus. And I have some ideas for that I'm not comfortable sharing with the public at this point with regard to classified staff members. Because, again, if we remote out, we have bus drivers we won't need, we will have cooks we won't need, we will have lots of people that don't have positions, but I have some ideas that I would be putting into place to help that situation out. And that helps in a great way if the teaching staff is on campus, and I'll explain that to you at a different time. With regard to students who make bad choices, it is a slippery slope. We are not a private school, and a couple months back you could remember that a local high school, parochial high school, made a statement about students who had attended a party, and that there would be a quarantine if they were identified and wouldn't be able to come to school. We don't have the same benefit as a public school district. I have had a couple conversations with legal counsel about this. Clearly, our student handbooks with athletics can be revised, that there would be some kind of a sanction given from the coach to the student. But to say that we would have some disciplinary measure applied from the student code of conduct being a suspension of some type of disciplinary action is not something that we can do because, again,
and I wasn't suggesting punitive, I wasn't suggesting suspension or anything like that. So, I mean, that's not what I was alluding to, but, go ahead.
So our circumstance is different than a parochial high school, is my point.
Okay.
So help me understand what you were asking.
No, I wasn't suggesting.
Because I thought that's what you were asking.
Yeah, no. I wasn't suggesting, that, but, the extent to which, they would be allowed to continue to participate for a period of time, should they violate, not quarantining. So not necessarily a suspension, meaning like in the way of like, suspending a child, whatever, because that, I'm thinking that would affect some academics as well. But with respect to the sport,
like not being able to play or return to that sport.
Yeah.
Right, so we could revise the athletic handbooks to suggest that during the period of a quarantine or pandemic, if a student athlete were to choose to do something, that the coach would then apply a sanction to that athlete. We could do that.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Because it's, again, there are people that are going to, by and large, the majority of, these kids are, following the rules. But it only takes one or two to jeopardize, a team, not necessarily for an entire season, but definitely for a good stretch, of their ability to compete. So.
And let me know when I can interject here, because I do have something to add to that. If I don't want to interrupt you, Mark, but if when you're done, I'd like to comment on that.
No, I'm done. I'm finished making my comment, around that.
All right. So, first of all, I'd like to thank, the parents and these students who have been, trying to do their best to be responsible and, just keep their peers safe, keep their family safe, keep their athletes that they compete with safe. As you see, I'm in remote right now, and I do have a daughter who had to be quarantined and who did get COVID. And I can tell you that my daughter was, she's been doing her best to make sure that she doesn't jeopardize her teammates, her family, her classmates around her. And on Halloween, she was actually sitting home with me watching movies. However, she still ended up being quarantined and ended up getting COVID, and Now, our family's been quarantined for a few weeks, well, 2 weeks, the 2 weeks period. Husband's been teaching from the basement, son's been doing his work first floor, and we got lucky. We're lucky that our daughter has had mild symptoms and is doing better and is now, thank goodness, over the quarantine period. We still have a couple more days. But I just think when you're a student athlete, or when you're, not athlete, but you, there's privileges you earn when you earn a spot on a team. Kind of, you may have taken spots from other people who had strong desires to be on that team. But I think there should be a certain code of conduct that you are held to, and teenagers are, they're teenagers. They're going to want to do things. They're going to want to socialize. They're mourning being with their friends. But I want, these parents, these students, in school, outside of school, just be very cognizant of, the decisions you make, because it does affect other people. And for the most part, from what I'm seeing, and not just our schools, but schools who are able to have a safe plan like us, these students are not getting, for the most part, getting sick on campus.
Yeah.
So that is, that's kind of like the double-edged sword wherein we, when it comes to considering going virtual or a state course. But we just, we need everybody to do their part. I mean, we don't want these numbers to increase. We don't want, groups of families and kids to be, quarantined and missing out on school. And, it's a challenge being home remotely when that's not what you're used to, when you're used to being with your students. It's a challenge for the teachers, and it's a challenge for the staff who are also picking up what's, kind of picking up the slack and helping out. Because I know that these, some of these teachers who have to spot sub, or, spot sub is an option, I can understand them feeling safe in their own little bubble with their kids, and now they're being introduced to other kids. And for the most part, it's they do it. They do what they to do, and they, it might not be what, it might not be the best situation, but everybody's trying to work together to just do their part. But we do need people to step up, to just, to just think about the people in your community, your teacher. And I understand the concern of the high school, middle school teachers. It's that age group where these kids are starting to want to do things on their own and, spread their wings. But we just gotta keep that, just keep that under control. Now, as far as younger kids, if we are talking about pivoting and going all virtual right after Thanksgiving break, I'm concerned about that too, because we would put a lot of families in a bind as to now what they're going to do with their kids and with childcare and their jobs. So that's a very tough situation too. I'm sure I have more to add, but I'm going to stop right there because I've already, I think, used my allotted time quote. But these are just some of my thoughts, some of my concerns, and concerns for the teachers, concerns for the students. We just have to do better than this. We have to do better as a community.
Mrs. Powers, can I ask a quick question on the topic? Mrs. Davis just reminded me of something. A couple of weeks back, there was some conversation about doing some capacity planning. If we were to shift, what could we handle? And so, one of the things that I'm thinking about is the 1/3 of on-campus students right now, the parents of high school that are specifically impacted right now and concerned about it, that want to move to virtual. Will we have the capacity to accommodate just that portion if we ended up, deciding Thanksgiving wasn't the right time, but that particular cohort of people who right now are on campus, they're at the high school or they're at the middle school, their kids are, being exposed, they want to pivot out. Do we have capacity, or we have not done that work yet?
So the work that we've been focused on beyond the data here tonight talks about the parent survey from October, where parents were asked to provide their intention for the second semester. And Board, as you know, that data came back pretty good in the sense that we don't have a lot of changes from here to there, being from on-campus to virtual or vice versa. I have met with all buildings but one. Tomorrow we'll finish those conversations. And in all circumstances, we are able to accommodate the desires of the parents to switch the school option for their child.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was actually talking about the data in this survey, the one that was done this week, where it's a third of the current on-campus high school students. So it's different, right? It's very different than the last survey we did. There's a lot more parents who changed their minds on the data that you just shared.
I think it's two different things. Because the initial survey of October 2020 talks about the second semester. This data is talking about the parents' feedback regarding the entire district. It wasn't specific to their child. We didn't ask the child's name in the survey. We just collected the parent name, and we were asking their opinion. This was an opinion survey, not a specific declaration for where their child should happen to go. With regard to the high school situation, the student schedules are so dependent on classes, and we have honors kids and AP kids and all kinds of kids. And so where Dr. Hebert has been able to accommodate a parent's request, she has done that. We met with the high school staff actually earlier today and talked about second semester, and they are able to build the schedule for second semester based on the individual requests that we received in the October 2020 survey pretty well. There may be a couple of circumstances that they have to massage it a little bit more than less, but I'm pretty sure that when we were back on the second semester, for the parents who provided their feedback by their individual child's name, we, for every circumstance as of today, we're able to make that happen at the semester break.
Did you have anything further, Mrs. Gordon?
No, the intent of my question was, the attitudinal survey that we just did, I understand it wasn't specific to opting in or out for a specific family, but the attitudinal survey, a third of the high school families that are currently in school asked, basically said their attitude was to pivot out. And that's what I was seeing if we had the capacity to do that. I think what I heard was no. So what I'm hearing is this is going to be an all or nothing, with a possible few exceptions. Is that what I heard?
This survey wasn't meant for a parent to declare their intention. Again, this was an opinion survey based on 3 points of information for 2 questions.
Totally understand that. It's a capacity question. Do we have the capacity to take on 17% more students in virtual tomorrow in the high school?
Mrs. Gordon, the high school schedules are built around student requests. Of course, we can't pivot that fast.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, though. We were doing some work at one point to see what we could do. I was just curious if we could take that data and apply it to what's happening right now. That's all. Thank you.
All right, I guess it's my turn. I've heard if everybody's done. Mr. Holland, I may want to be returning my striped card. But in all seriousness, I'm conflicted on a lot of things here. I'm going to try to get them out in no particular order. But really, the overriding factor is, is this decision, you talked about tough decisions earlier. Nobody's talked about making the decision. So I think that we have to get around to really summarizing what we're trying to do tonight. First of all, I've always stated we're not epidemiologists. We have a county health department that does that. We've had a governor that has tried to appeal to the higher self. Obviously, that didn't work. It didn't work in the state, and it didn't work in the country. I'm not even sure quarantine periods given what we've experienced, are really gonna solve anything. Are they really gonna impact the numbers, or are people gonna continue to socialize, continue to do what's got us here today, when we've known all along? And Tina, you know, I appreciate what you're trying to say. People aren't listening. And that's really the reality. If we take a quarantine period, are we just shifting, you know, the responsibility from the schools back out in the community? And if they continue to do what they're doing, I don't think the data is gonna change. But I also know that our position as elected officials is to reflect the parents. When we were making this decision many, many months ago, and the concern about going back to school, in a 2-hour period, I received 30 emails and phone calls. I've gotten nothing this week, nothing. I've gotten nothing the last week or the week before. So where are the concerns? If the community is asking this board to make a decision, they need to weigh in. I know we have an opinion survey, and I know it doesn't necessarily line up exactly with the declaration survey. And I know those declarations could change week to week based on the fact that we're in a new situation. So I think we really need to discuss tonight, are we making this decision? And are we making it for the right reasons? And so, you know, I like the idea of pauses. I'm not 100% sure they're gonna do what they're gonna do if behavior doesn't change. And I don't wanna belittle athletics or extracurricular, but we need to look at the largest population here. Athletics are important, extracurriculars are important, but really let's talk about the mass of the entire school. And if we were to, you know, stop at Thanksgiving and run clear through to January 18th, January 19th, I don't know if that's gonna necessarily do what we're expecting it to do. You know, if this is intended to be a compromise situation, what happens when Summit County calls tomorrow, as it's done to us before, when we've had changes? Cuyahoga County just did a stay-at-home request. There's no teeth in any of this. We have a curfew, there's no teeth. Police are not gonna be pulling you over, as the governor said today in one of the press conferences. Now, if he sees a group of people congregating, they may ask you to stop. So I don't know how many times this board has to plead with the community to ask people to do what's responsible. So I think we need to start looking at, you know, Mrs. Powers, is this the recommendation? And let's get down to the meat of discussing the points of the recommendation. And are we discussing a Thanksgiving at all, which is not on here, or are we gonna stay with this? And that's what I think we really need to decide as a board. Is this the decision we're making? If this is the decision, then let's get to it. But I'm not getting the community feedback at all. At all. Where are the parents in these decisions? Call the board if you really want to make, you know, an impact. We're not hearing it all. Yes, they made their declarations, you know. I don't know if we can put any disciplinary teeth in, you know, and just touching athletics and curriculars. What about, you know, the rest of the population is going to school that's not an extracurricular? Do they have any responsibility? Of course they do. So I'll get off my soapbox, and let's, as a board, now discuss, you know, are we making a recommendation?
So Mr. Felber, one of the early screens, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to our parents who selected the virtual academy, but the question about pivoting out, our virtual parents are already there, right? So the people that we are really asking for the opinion would be for those who, this will change the life of their home. This will change how families are being.
I guess that's my point. We
Right.
haven't heard from them with
So-
respect to their opinion.
So we did, is that the one? Thank you. That is the voice of the on-campus parents. The on-campus parents are asking us to stay the course.
At 73.7%.
So
Yeah,
I
but
don't
again,
dis,
it's a
I
high
don't
school,
dis.
a third of them are asking to pivot out. So that's the population I'm worried about.
I don't discount the virtual academy parents at all, but they're already there. And that's when I made my statement about
the
the.
in-campus, for the on-campus families of high school students, a third of them said they wanted to pivot out. That's the specific population that concerns me most. and the staff, to be honest, at the high school.
Okay, point made.
So in conversations today, we had a long 2-hour call with Donna Skoda and Tanya. And we talked about this, and we talked about whether or not Summit County Public Health is going to come out with a statement similar to that of Cuyahoga County. I understand Franklin did the same thing today too, maybe Hamilton County. Donna said that they are going to make a statement, but their statement is going to be more in line to what you're all saying today about people making better choices. And really what they're concerned about isn't the schools. They are not concerned, Summit County Public Health is not concerned about public school districts in our county. They have applauded the school districts as doing what we need to do to keep kids safe while they're with us under our care. Their concern is the spread in the community and the concern about hospitals and the ability for hospital workers to be well enough to take care of sick people and having enough beds. They say in 2 weeks, if the spread does not stop, they're going to be in a bad situation in the hospital realm. But she continues to come back to say that the school districts are doing a good job of keeping the spread at a minimal level because the kids under our care are doing what they need to do. The one thing they did say of their concern is if we were to pivot out, the kids aren't with us anymore. And so during the school day, certainly teachers would be teaching remotely, but the kids are not under the same rigid discipline protocols that they have to follow while they're on our campuses. And so the other counter to this is their concern that if we all remote out, does that turn it loose in the community to a greater degree? So that is a concern from the county. We talked today a little bit about the vaccinations that are coming from Pfizer and the other place, I cannot remember the name of it, Moderna or something. That vaccination is not tested on children, and it's only being tested on people from the ages of 18 to 65. It will go originally and specifically to essential workers, healthcare people, first responders. And so we are not to count on that as being something as a saving grace to this in the near future. And so as a school district, we have to understand how we're going to continue to operate under the pandemic. How do we continue to operate the schools? And I've told my central office staff, the very best place for kids to be is to be with us on campus. I wholly believe that's the truth.
I agree with you with that. And that's why I said I'm kind of torn, because in my heart, the kids need to be in school. And I agree 100%. When you take them out, they're going to do their own thing. And they're going to do it now. They're teenagers. But my concern is the staff now. So when the staff is out and you can't get substitutes in, who's teaching the kids that are on campus? What are they doing? Would it be more beneficial for them to be online and they're getting that, where they can, where they can be at home and still get that education? Like, who's going to be teaching them if you can't get substitute and the teachers are out?
I think I explained a couple options that we have in place now. One is teleworking, the other one is screen sharing. So we are thinking about ways, and we are using ways that harness technology to help keep kids connected with classroom teachers when the classroom teacher isn't necessarily standing in front of them in person, or when the student is out and the classroom teacher is here. How do we keep academics going? And so as a school district, we've been very creative in harnessing technology and making it work for kids and for teachers so that the academics continue.
And so, and I'll weigh in, Rob, on a couple of things. With respect to these recommendations and what are they truly, I do think that it represents a compromise. It represents an opportunity to try and address behavior, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better way to explaining it. And I think that the governors, tried to do that, to your point, at the county level. I mean, everyone's tried to do that, so they come up with different strategies of ways that are not punitive, quite frankly. And I think that what's been laid out here, and for one, Mrs. Powers, I really appreciate the fact that you've had some conversation with Donna and her staff about the feasibility of these things and also kind of the rationale behind it, so that you got some support. That brings a certain level of comfort for me, knowing that that they're aware of these things, at least what you're proposing. I'm comfortable with what you're proposing, understanding that, and, at the end of the day, we don't have any control over what other people choose to do or not to do. I mean, that's really the huge issue here.
So I was trying to say the flaw is compliance.
Right,
The flaw in this is compliance.
Right, absolutely, Rob, but I'm like, I don't know, stopping short of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I think that what's being recommended here, I think that most people can live with it. Now, that being said, Mrs. Davis brought up, concerns around childcare and other staff, and those are very real. What I will say is that when we developed this plan, from the beginning, we were very clear in making sure that our families understood that we could pivot at any time, that the plan is fluid, and that things could change. And so, the reality is, there are going to be some hardships, but based on what is currently happening, doing nothing is not an option. And so putting some recommendations in place that the goal is to help kind of mitigate some of these things. We don't know to what extent it's going to be effective. I mean, we don't know. If we knew, then we'd probably be looking at something different.
I mean, if we lean towards the older grades having a problem, and some people will say, send 7 through 12 home. But I don't think that. I think that could potentially make the problem worse. A lot of parents, as we know, double-income families that need to work, and maybe less concerned on the 10th or 11th grader being compliant, getting their work done, to leave 7th and 8th graders, to their own devices. And I'm not talking electronic devices, their own devices. I tend to lean towards what Mrs. Palmer says, is it's safer in schools. The numbers that we're seeing include plenty of virtual, and I don't know if we know the answer. Are they getting this at school? Many countries, other folks have gone back to school, and schools are not the super spreader events. So if the schools are not the super spreader events, why are we sending people into a higher spread environment where it is less compliant, where at least 6-8 hours of the day there's some compliance, as well.
To be fair, the rest of the world, Rob, I hear what you're saying on that. Sorry, Mr. Felber. But to be fair, the rest of the world, the schools are opening at much lower positivity rates than where we're at right now, right? So we're really high right now. I mean, really high. Somebody shared what Cuyahoga County right now is at 15% positivity.
I mean, the whole state's red.
And I don't know if we got any data from the Board of Health. Like, I was trying to reach out. I would think we have contact tracing, right?
Thank you.
So we should know how many of our cases came from a party, how many came from being on the field, and how many came from being in school. We should know that. Somebody knows that, because
how can you
I
possibly
talked
know
to
that?
parents, my kid got positive, but my kid didn't go to party. It had to happen somewhere, right?
But you just
And
don't, there's no way to know that.
I'm a data person, right?
You don't know whether they pick it up at a grocery store, at a game, or at a party. I mean, or in the class. There's no way to really know on an invisible microscopic virus how someone got it. Yes, we can look at super spreader events. One of the research I saw said there's super spreaders in a group that, 18 people in a group, they don't all have the same capacity to spread the virus. There could be 1 or 2 super spreaders in a group that infect more people. So, the 2-to-1 ratio is thrown out the window. It's still a novel virus. We don't know where it's all spreading.
Donna Skota gave an example today on our call that she said that this stuff is so contagious that you can take off your mask at home and not wash your hands and touch your eye or your nose, and you can become infected as easily as that. So it's difficult, to your point, Mr. Felber, to say that we can contact trace this to the degree that I think Mrs. Gordon is asking for.
Well, but not only that, I read, an article where there were multiple county health directors and basically the processes that they go through. And so I think there was one point in time where there was a couple week lag of them actually getting around to contact trace. Now, early on, people, as they went to houses and they contacted people to gather information, because a lot of it is self-reported. I mean, these people have to admit and say, this is where I was and this is who I was with, and they wouldn't give them the information. So it made it much more difficult because there was a real lack of understanding in terms of what contact tracing is and and the purpose of it, and they looked at it more of a stigma. So they wouldn't divulge the data. Now that things are where they are, they're much more able, or at least willing, to provide them the information. And so they've become much more effective at doing this. I think that the number that she put out in terms of their contacts, either on the phone or actually going to houses and leaving leaflets for parents, for people to call back, they're at around 95%. Which is I think very good from where they started. And so I think that as this thing has evolved, the processes by which they go to and the lengths to which they go to gather the information that they need so that they can more effectively contact trace is better now than it was, when things started in March. I have to assume that as we continue along this path, they'll continue to get better. And they'll continue to be more accurate in the data that they have. But that's what we have right now. I mean, and I think that the level of communication and coordination and cooperation that we've had with Summit County has been second to none. And I think that
compared to other counties.
Yeah, compared to other counties. I can tell you right now that that's not the case in Cuyahoga County in terms of processes and procedures. I think we're very fortunate the level of which we have collaboration with our Summit County Board of Health. So, to that end, again, I go back to the recommendations.
I think what we're looking at here, and to be completely honest, we're looking at a guess.
Absolutely.
And if the majority of those that are already are on campus want to stay the course, our job is to, first of all, respect that, reinforce again that we're not the epidemiologists, and let the folks in Summit County who are not recommending a shutdown right now, if they were, we'd be having a different discussion. So if we were to pull the rug out for Thanksgiving, highly disruptive. That doesn't mean that Summit County might not pull the rug, but I don't know if that's our decision to make. So I'm kind of saying, this is a compromise. We will know more on January 19th if we do this shutdown, but I think that we have to see the whole state be compliant. And I don't think just Twinsburg shutting down alone is going to solve this, as I've stated. So I think that if we're looking for a decision tonight that is not highly disruptive, that is reflective of the data that we just got tonight, stay the course for now. And of course, as Mark said, at any moment we could pivot, because we have and we will, and go with the recommendation for the longer break. And we'll probably have 19 adjustments between now and then anyways. That to me, if we had to boil down, the bad from the bad choices, that's probably the best. It's the least disruptive, it's the least respectful. I mean, it's the most respectful of those that have given us their information, and it follows the recommendations of the county.
Mr. Felber, the one thing that I failed to include on my recommendations, and I apologize, would be that the period between January 5th and Martin Luther King Day, where the students are remoting, there is a population of students with significant disabilities that we would still have on campus with us. I think that for some of our children who are challenged with disabilities, learning remotely is next to impossible, and we saw some families struggling with this in the closure of last spring. So Mrs. Honeycutt has been busy behind the scenes discussing this very issue with staff, and they're starting to reach some conclusions as to which of our students and their parents would prefer that even during a pivot out, that they would continue to come to school because they need to be here. So I forgot, I'm sorry, I forgot to put that
No,
on
that's
the
pretty
slide.
significant,
Sorry,
yeah.
Mrs. Honeycutt, because we've talked about this multiple times this last week. But she's already been planful and has started that communication, so I just wanted to verbally say that because I know some of our parents need that information and need to know that if your child is really struggling with significant disabilities, it would be our desire for you to allow us to continue to educate them here on campus. Obviously, for this population of children, if the parent has, autoimmune deficiencies at home and then says, nope, my child needs to stay home, then that would be their choice. But for a certain population of children, regardless of remoting out after winter break, we would suggest that they need to be on campus.
Oh, I agree,
So
100%.
if we're gonna earn our stripes tonight, we need to come to a decision as a board. I don't think there's a good or, a good or bad, in here. We don't know if a shutdown's gonna work. We don't know if a shutdown's gonna make it worse. If we did, we'd be having a different discussion. So I think, the recommendations, even though I've gone back and forth and I've listened to, if we knew a shutdown would absolutely shut it down right now, then we shut down tomorrow. But we don't know that. And again, the county's not recommending that. I think we balance all that and the recommendations that the superintendent has put in front of us are the least disruptive, the most reflective of the parents and the county that we have to make a decision tonight. I don't like the decision either way.
On to accept the athletics recommendations.
I'd rather deal with the largest issue, but
Well, I think we have a chance to, without more dialogue.
Yeah,
I make a motion that we accept the athletics recommendations.
Yeah, I'm
do
fine
we
with
need to
you.
be in new business before, do we actually have to be?
There's no resolution, this
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
my
there's no
report.
resolution.
It doesn't belong
Okay,
here.
all right, we'll
Yeah.
wait until new business.
But, I'm fine with the athletics. I had my question, which we kind of had discussion around that, so, I'm all right, with that. The larger issue, again, I've made it clear, where I stand, with this. I think it's very thoughtful. You've done a lot of work behind this. I'm definitely in favor of students with disabilities continuing to receive their services because they are our most vulnerable population. And it is reflective of, the parents who are currently coming or sending their kids on campus. The overwhelming majority would prefer to continue to do that. So that's where I am.
And I just have one more question maybe about what the remote period would look like between after Christmas break, the January to Martin Luther King Day. I guess my question is, with the exception of maybe those teachers who would be working with special ed who may need to be on campus, would our other teachers, would the majority of teachers be able to teach remotely from home for those who wish to do so? That's one of my questions.
Mrs. Davis, I don't think so. Contractually, we would have some issues with requiring some on staff to come and some not to come to work. The other issue here is with regard to the classified personnel, and again, I have an idea that I would like to share with the board at another time. It is tied to teachers being on campus.
So my inclination is the recommendations make a ton of sense to me for at least K through 6, possibly 7th and 8th. I'm really concerned about the high school. I'm concerned about the high school over break. and I'm concerned about them coming back after Thanksgiving. My preference would be pivot high school out for sure, Thanksgiving on, and then possibly that might be enough to get the cases down, and then we might not even have to do it after January. That would be my preference, because I'm really concerned with the numbers, specifically with the high schoolers. I don't know, because I haven't seen the contact tracing for sure, where the cases are coming from. I do have a data point in March. We didn't have these kind of numbers, right? So when we pivoted them out last time, we didn't have these numbers, and all of the fraternizing and socializing we're afraid of, I don't think really happened in March, right? Now there was a different story going on, a different culture happening, but my preference is the staff spoke pretty strongly that 75% or more in the high school, they're tired, they're exhausted, they're afraid. I'm very empathetic to it right now. And I don't think waiting 4 weeks is gonna solve the problem.
But if we look back at these numbers from November 10th to 17th with 22 students, you know, take out the 6 or so that are virtual. That is a really small population. It really is of the positive cases, and who knows whether the other schools have the integrity and the reporting that we've built. I mean, you know, we're talking, what are we in the high school population, 1450?
Right.
And if we looked at just numbers in the high school, on campus, it's 13. That really is small. And I'm not, you know, begrudging anybody that went through this or what Angie, you know, what you
We're
went
at
through.
13. No, that's actually can't be right, because we are, well.
I'm just looking at this 1
We're on a daily
week.
infection rate right now in the 11 to 12. And that's our whole population, right? But most of it's in, so it's about 20% of that. So you're right. We get five cases in the 0 to 19 a day happening in our zip code in 44087. Some of that's private, I guess.
But some of that could be
Some of
Aurora
it-
schools. I mean, it's Reminderville, it's Aurora, it's Twinsburg. I mean, it's.
No, I'm just talking about the 44087.
And I'm saying,
Right.
44087 is not just the city proper, and it's not just the district. And it could be skewed by the fact that there's multiple nursing homes in this community, and we can go on and debate that, but I'm looking at the data, we're talking a small number, and we send a lot of these kids home, it could get worse. When there's, you know, I think the system is safer at schools. At least for now, until we have more data that says quarantines and shutdowns are gonna work, because they haven't worked so far.
Mrs. Davis?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, here's another, thing that I have that we really talked about. I'm not gonna go on like I did before, but, and this is from recommendations from American Academy of Pediatrics, but I don't need them to tell me really that, what some of these concerns are, but, I mean, you've got concerns of when these kids are at home and not on campus in school being educated, of increased substance abuse, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. I know in another district recently, a high school student had ended his life, and nobody knows the reason, but, and I'm not even gonna try to guess or venture that, but there's also those concerns too, of these kids being isolated at home, and I'm not even saying a great majority of these kids, but we do have that, we do have those concerns to worry about with our students too. That's been in the back of my mind as well. I completely understand these teachers' concerns. And I can't even say, for the most part, a lot of these kids are doing what they need to do. They're doing the right thing. They're, they want to be in school. we need these kids and their families to, and I'll repeat, think about their teachers, their classmates, the people they come into contact with when they're making decisions about what they do on their free time. But I'm in favor of trying to honor these parents' wishes too, and keeping our kids in school.
And what we've talked about for the last 2 hours is 15 days.
Right.
We're talking in-school day, we're not talking about weekends. If I could be off a day or two if I'm looking at I was just looking at my calendar. We're talking about 15 days. And a lot can happen in 15 days, but, I think, the harm to the families of the disruption in that amount of time, is gonna outweigh, again, if we knew, a break would shut it down in its tracks, we would have done it a month ago. We would have never gone back on, if that was the data, but we don't have that data.
The only district that's contemplating shutting down after Thanksgiving is Springfield in our county.
Who is it?
Springfield.
Where are they at?
They're south, they're like, yeah.
So I think if we are talking a resolution of any sorts, we'd have to come up in the appropriate time in the meeting, and Mrs. Powers, I don't know if that was your intent, was to have these recommendations dealt with as a...
Well, I think our parents need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is we move on with the rest of the agenda. I think
Right.
we've said everything we said. The only thing that, if your desire is to stay in school, get on your Twitter, get on your Snapchat, get on your Facebook, and the only way society is gonna change is pressure. And I'm preaching to a choir of people here that are all being compliant, and everybody else in this room. So, if you don't want your freedoms infringed, as people are concerned about, get up and do something about your neighborhood.
Okay,
That concludes my report for tonight.
thank you.
Are you
That's-
sure?
That's probably the longest,
Could you go back to slide 8?
longest superintendent's report in history.
Trying to earn that striped carpet. That's a lot of
Okay.
pressure on you.
All right, we're going to get to the business portion of the meeting. Mr. Aho, I do not believe we have any blue cards for remonstrance. So I will move on to item H, which is the treasurer's report and recommendations. Without objection from my colleagues, I will read H1 and 2 together. H1.
Curtis, will you break out the forecast, please?
Okay. H1, resolved that the Twinsburg City School, the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the following resolution authorizing the advance of local taxes by the county fiscal officer for the tax year 2020 and payable in 2021. Whereas Section 32134A1 of the Ohio Revised Code states in part, when the local authorities by resolution or request, the county auditor or fiscal officer shall pay the treasurer of any board of education any money that may be in the county treasury to the accounts of the local authorities respectively and lawfully applicable to the purpose of the current fiscal year in which the request is made. Whereas this resolution is in the public interest and serves the public good, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Twinsburg City School District, Summit County, Ohio, that Section 1, Board Declarations, that the board declares the necessity of receiving advance of local taxes for the prompt and efficient operation of the school district and directs the county fiscal office to make such tax advances for tax year 2020 and payable in 2021 to the Twinsburg City School District per Section 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 2, compliance with open meeting requirements. This board finds and determines that all formal actions of this board and any of its committees concerning and relating to the adoption of this resolution were taken, and that all deliberations of this board and any of its committees that resulted in those formal actions were held in meetings open to the public in compliance with the law. Section 3, captions and headings. The captions and headings in this resolution are solely for the convenience of reference and in no way define, limit, or describe the scope or intent of any sections, subsections, paragraphs, subparagraphs, or clauses hereof. And Section 4, effective date, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately upon its adoption. May I have a motion to approve H1?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Felber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeFabio. Any discussion? Or if there's anything that you would add, Mr. Aho, with respect to this resolution?
No, we do this every year, and it just directs the county to send us the tax advances as they collect them. They used to do it automatically before, but now they require us to send them a resolution.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. And that item passes 5-0. Next is H2. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves and adopts the Twinsburg City School District's 5-year forecast and assumptions for the school year 2021 through 2025 as prescribed by Ohio Revised Code 5705.412 and 5705.391. Do I have a motion for H2?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Felber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, I'll give that to Mrs. Davis.
Thanks.
Discussion?
Well, Marty, you've always talked about your barometer, and I'm not gonna shoot the messenger because the numbers are the numbers. You've been doing this for 18-plus years, and if I'm doing my math, that's 14 of these that I've seen, give or take. I could be off one. We've got some hard work ahead of us. Levies need to pass to maintain, but the forecast itself, I believe in your numbers, and you know, they've always been conservative and kept us in a good place, and we've been criticized for having a fund balance, I think, until 2020 showed up, and we miraculously needed to spend $2.9 million, 1.8 of that on personnel, to get through phase 1 of the pandemic. So I appreciate the hard work that goes into this. These are just guidelines. Wall Street can say something one day and it changes, and they're not criticized by having to go out 5 years, let alone 5 weeks.
Couldn't have said that better. I concur. Any other comments? Okay, Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
No.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. That item passes 4-1.
Can I make a point of order, or at least a question?
Sure.
Maybe Mrs. Gordon, when someone asks for something to be changed on the agenda, there's an expectation of some explanation of why that's being done. And to do that and then not have any discussion confuses me.
I just wanted to be able to vote 2 different votes.
Okay. I just think the public needs to understand our votes, yes or no, and the decisions that we make.
People are welcome to reach out to me. I'm very accessible.
Okay, we'll move on to item I, action items, personnel. Without objection from my colleagues, I will read I-1 through 3 together. I-1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the certified licensed personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. 2, that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the classified personnel and/or contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. And 3, that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts the supplemental contract recommendations detailed in the attached exhibit as per the dates, terms, and other applicable conditions specified pending satisfactory ORC background checks. Do I have a motion for action items I-1 through 3?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. DeFabio. Second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Davis.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Mr. Curtis, I think the major thing on the spreadsheets is the retirement of Mike Scheer.
Oh, yes.
Trainer Mike. I told him I wasn't gonna accept his resignation. He put it on the desk anyhow, but we will celebrate T. Mike at the end of the school year.
Wow.
But this is a huge, it's gonna be a huge position to fill, and it will fill it with a trainer, but it's Mr. Scheer's personality and the great care he's given thousands of athletes in his time here. And not only the athletes, he is just such a great person, cares about folks so very deeply, takes the time out of his busy schedule to talk to us. He's here all the time. I actually think he's here more than me, which is a remarkable thing. And he's just such a gentleman. I'm gonna miss him. Personally, I'm gonna miss him, and professionally, I'm gonna miss him. And I just wanted to point this retirement out so that the community knows that Trainer Mike's gonna be off to his stable with his horses, he said, his dog and his wife. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna hang out with the three of them.
And you know, Mrs. Powers, there's going to be a lot of staff and students, my daughter, one of them, who definitely miss him. And I mean, my husband's had many interactions, or has, known him over the years through coaching, our family. He's, as in, other teachers and coaches, but he has, touched thousands of people with just his positive attitude and his caring, and what he's done for the students and the athletic program. And it's going to be a very, very well-deserved retirement, to say the least. They're going to be big shoes to fill, but I wish him the best, and he's going to be missed by the district.
No, absolutely. I concur. Mrs. Powers, thank you for pointing that out. I would have felt horrible not to be able to talk about T. Mike. Great guy. Had the privilege of him, both of my kids being under his tutelage. And my son wants to follow in his footsteps. That's what he wants to do, is be an athletic trainer. So he's been a huge influence with both of my kids. And you couldn't meet a nicer guy, and you couldn't meet someone who cares more about our students and goes above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that our kids are safe in all of their activities, and provides guidance. So much so, he cares deeply. I think it's the epitome of kind of what we expect, or at least what we've come to know of longtime staff members in this district. So he's going to be sorely missed. Definitely someone who's going to be difficult. Whoever steps in his shoes are going to be stepping into some big shoes to fill. But I agree with you, Mrs. Davis. It's a retirement that's well deserved. But I'm like Mrs. Powers. I'm a little selfish. Would love for him to stick around a little longer, but definitely his prerogative to kind of set things down and move along into the next phase of his life, is the next chapter. Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, Mr. Ahill, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Claudio?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. And that item passes 5-0.
I was hoping you'd vote no on that.
I don't know. Okay, so next is action items, new business. J 1 through 3, without objection from my colleagues, I will read them together. J1, resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the attached listing of media center items to be deleted from inventory per the attached exhibit. 2, that the Twinsburg Board of Education accepts a donation from Ohio Pile Prints Incorporated, 510 Dinner Bell Road, Ohio Pile, PA 15470, to grades 9 through 12. Twinsburg High School in the amount of $243.92. The donation from the sale of Twinsburg apparel at local retailers to be used for miscellaneous instructional supplies per the attached exhibit. And 3, that the Twinsburg Board of Education approves the service agreement with Education Alternatives to provide special education services for 1 student to attend Education Alternatives Cuyahoga Falls for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. Prepaid tuition cost is $17,423 as sent to the board under separate cover. This is a general fund expenditure. Do I have a motion for J 1 through 3?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. DeFabio. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Felber. Discussion? I would like
I just apologize. I should have asked to break out item 3, and I apologize for that, so I got caught up in the discussions tonight.
Okay, well, I would like to thank Ohio Pile for their donation. As always, it doesn't matter the denomination, it's really the thought behind their action. They're a nice gesture, so I appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, Mr. Ahale, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. DeFabio?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Abstain.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes, and that item passes 4 with 1 abstention. J 4 and 5. Without objection from my colleagues, I will read them together.
Mr. Curtis, you have to take 5 separately.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. So J 4. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education authorizes the business manager to sell bus 17, bus 29, and bus 34, which have been determined to be no longer needed for school purposes. These items will be posted on an online auction site. The net proceeds of this sale will be returned to the Permanent Improvement Fund. Do I have a motion for J 4?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Felber. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeFabio. Any discussion? I'll just add that, this is part of the normal process. As we, service our buses, there's a,
10-year rotation.
yeah, there's a 10-year rotation, at
Right,
which
yeah.
time.
Well, here you come.
Yeah, there we go. There we go, Chad. Obviously, he
Chad,
got it real
Chad.
quick, so I wasn't doing a good job of the description, so.
The reason this is a little delayed is we wanted to see how our operations have been going for the beginning of the year. As you know, on the last agenda, we also approved an additional van to try to address some of the social distancing that we need to do on the buses and how that's going to work with some of our smaller runs. So we delayed to make sure. Actually, it switched one of the buses because one of our buses, you think all the buses will last 10 years, but one of the buses actually had a $18,000, something like that estimate to repair. So obviously that would be one we want to ground as opposed to put that money into. So that's part of the strategy of why we're doing it now as opposed to over the summer.
I appreciate those considerations, Mr. Welker. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Welker? Thank you. Mr. Ahale, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFabio?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. That item passes 5-0. Now, J5. Resolved that the Twinsburg Board of Education holds this public hearing to give notice of the recommendation for the 2021-2022 academic calendar and to provide an opportunity for public comment per the attached exhibit. Do I have a motion for J5?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Davis, by Mrs. DeFabio. Mrs. Davis, I'll give you the second.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, yeah, she beat you by a nose. Any discussion?
Mr. Curtis, I just noticed there's a typo in that resolution. It should be 21-22, not 20-21.
20,
20-21-22.
okay. All right. Let that be reflected for the record. Okay, any other comments or discussion? Okay, Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Fabio?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. And that item passes 5-0. Since we're in new business, you want to add
Yeah.
J6?
You want to add?
I'll make a motion to add J6 for
I was going to make the
purposes.
suggestion that we take both recommendations inclusive, because judging from the conversation, I think we're in agreement for all the recommendations.
Okay. For J6, right?
Yeah, J6 being that, based on the data provided, that we accept the superintendent's recommendations to stay the course through December 21st, and then starting January 5th through Monday, January 18th, the district will go remote with the first day back on Tuesday, January 19th. In addition, to accept the recommendation to pause athletics until December 7th.
Can we break those? I would like to move that we break those into two different
Okay.
resolutions.
I'll withdraw the athletics, and we'll just do a J6.
All right, so J6?
J6 would be to accept the recommendation to stay the course through December 21st, go remote from January 5th to January 18th, and return to the previously selected choices on Tuesday, January 19th. That would be J6.
All right, Mr. Felber's made the motion.
I've made that motion.
We need a second. Do we have a second? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mrs. Davis.
No problem.
Okay, second from Mrs. Davis. Discussion.
For me, I really appreciate the effort of coming up with a compromise to thinking through this deeply. My style is, when a metric doesn't look good, to pivot fast and furious. And so my style is, when I see 10 out of 626, 4 weeks is too long, specifically, actually, for the high school and potentially junior high. So that will explain where I'm coming from here.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Fabio?
Yes.
Mrs. Gordon?
No.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. And that item passes 4-1. Now, J7 is with respect to the recommendations for athletics and extracurricular activities to pause until December 7th, and then use current data to decide whether the sports programs and extracurricular activity can safely continue. Do I have a motion for J7?
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Gordon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Davis. Discussion?
And, well, just for clarification, and I believe you just said it, Mr. Curtis, though, we are not saying that sports are going to just start right back up and continue come first week of December. They may. We have to see what our numbers are looking at, what our absentees are looking at, what, if there's data to look at, we are saying that we will be reevaluating that first week of December to move forward or continue a pause, correct?
Is that what you're?
I think
That's what it says.
Okay.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Nope, no
Thank you.
problem. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Hale, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFazio?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mr. Curtis?
Yes. And that item passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is item K, miscellaneous. Floor is open. Anybody for miscellaneous?
I just want to clarify my comment earlier, that when agendas are changed and people are asking for things for a certain reason, I think the reason should be stated in a public meeting and a discussion there to put the onus on the public to go find a meeting, watch it, and track you down, is not the spirit of an open public meeting. That's my opinion only.
Mine has nothing to do with that. I've commented quite enough today, but just a thank you to the now 127 people who are still watching after over 3 hours of a meeting. I appreciate your time for this and your interest in it, and just a thank you to those still watching.
I would like to just take a moment, and I've thanked our staff numerous times before, but I really feel the necessity to do it again, and this is to all staff, that I think that you've done a phenomenal job under a tremendous amount of stress, working in an environment that is so unpredictable, and still keeping in front of you the primary focus, which is educating our kids and providing quality services to our students. I was actually a little surprised, shocked to see our attendance data and what it looks like in the midst of a pandemic compared to last year where we had no pandemic. And I think that that speaks volumes in your ability to adapt to extremely difficult circumstances and still maintain a high level of integrity and quality. It says a lot about Twinsburg City Schools, but Twinsburg City Schools is nothing without the people that support the work and do the work. So to all of you, my hat's off. I am deeply appreciative, and I have a high level of gratitude for everything that you do. Thank you.
One more quick thank you, that someone who never gets thanks, Mark, for always keeping us on camera and our volumes, and especially tonight, getting a little warm in here, passing out water to everybody. So for those that didn't see that cameo, you may never see it again, but thank you, Mark.
And I'm going to pipe in, because I forgot to, okay, without sounding corny, but those of you who I really can't see through my little screen who are off screen and still there at the Government Center, the administrators and everybody who's there, but thanks for sticking that out with us too. I know you're tired, but thanks.
Okay. Then
Make
we
a
are.
motion to adjourn.
Yes, I am at item L. That's what guys been waiting on all night. I will make the motion for us to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Felber. I'm not even going to ask about discussion. Mr. Aho, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Curtis?
Yes.
Mr. Felber?
Yes.
Mrs. DeFazio?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes, absolutely.
Mrs. Gordon?
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and have a nice Thanksgiving, and thank you.